That's why. See, that's another thing that I was gonna mention is that one of those things in commentary that people don't understand is that again, it's a lot like fighting games where you take turns and then sometimes you extend your turn. Sometimes you try to not steal the turn, but sometimes you extend the turn and keep it going. All right, and it's up to your partner to understand that. Oh, he's gonna keep going. Let him keep going. And
Or
then
I could fall for the
sometimes
frame trap and just talk over you like that, right?
and then you could just steal your turn back because something hype happens. Something
Yeah.
hype happens, and maybe you're the one that's just like, "Oh my god!" Just you just blow up, and then I just shut up because
Yeah.
it calls for it.
Hello, hello, and welcome to the Absolute Guard podcast.
For the podcast that chronicles the past and present of the fighting game community and bring on various perspectives from Arizona. You can find us on Twitch when we go live at twitch.tv/Spiral Series, on YouTube when the VOD's available at youtube.com/Spiral Series, and on Apple Podcasts and Spotify under Absolute Guard. To all of you watching and listening, we appreciate you. If you've liked and subscribed or commented on Facebook, we definitely appreciate you guys and the support. This is episode 13. I'm Benny, also known as AK Grandmaster B. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, John, who I found out a few days ago is very susceptible to the Asian flush.
That's relevant.
How you doing, John?
I'm good. As you mentioned, we are doing today's a drinks episode, so I am going to be drinking this Voodoo Ranger IPA. And I had this last time on Tuesday.
Yeah.
We taped an episode on Tuesday, and if you watch that video, I gradually become more and more red throughout it. And I there was a moment in that podcast where I like stopped in the middle of my thought and was like, I'm drunk right now. This is great. I'm drunk. And I cut it out because like it was just completely uncalled for. It was like I was like complimenting your wife or something, and like I completely cut it out. So I'm hoping that like on our live show today, I don't have a similar experience or a similar outburst.
No, it's all good, man. It's just like for those that don't know, the Asian flush refers to like the red coloring of us Asian folks' skin. Or for some of us, I'm not really susceptible to that.
It's an enzyme or something. Yep.
But I noticed John got pretty red the last a few days ago, so that was pretty funny.
Yep. Now I'm red from being embarrassed about being red.
Yeah. Oh, I figured that was a relevant segue into your introduction. One, because our guy is another fellow Asian in the community, Mr. NinjaNam. How you doing today, Nam?
Oh, what's up, Nam?
Hey man, hey guys. It's a good day to be alive. What can I say? I'm doing great. It's great to see you guys. So I'm doing great. Got off work. I have a beverage in my hand. Great to be sharing it with you guys.
Yeah, this isn't an official drinks episode. I guess any episode could be a drinks episode. But what are you drinking today?
Oh, me?
Yes.
Well, I am drinking a cognac. It is a brand called Ade Fusigny Selection. And just decided to pull that out. It's been kind of sitting in my cabinets. It's kind of like I like on a special occasion because I don't drink by myself very often.
That's what I was gonna say. It's a special occasion, right?
Yeah, it's a very special occasion, and better yet, I only drink at home mostly when I'm on like webcam or like on a call with friends or something like that. So like we'll be like watching a tournament or a stream, and we'll have like a watch party, and I'll just like bring out a drink or something. Other than that, it just sits there for special occasions.
Nice, very fitting. I myself just have water. I have to work tonight, so no alcohol for me. But it's been I don't know, when I think of Nam, I think of one, somebody who's very welcoming. Like when he comes into our community, he always says hi to me and my family. My kids whenever he comes into the tournaments. I think of him as a commentator on a local level. He's been doing some stuff nationally as well, and then also he's had some good tournament results nationally for Marvel versus Capcom Infinite. I was looking through a couple things here, like he had back in 2019, like he got third at was it Evo or not this was Evo. I didn't look at what this was. I don't know. I see a third place here. I think Evo 2019 looks like you got fourth place there, and then at final round 2019 you had got third place there, which is all pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, I've had some pretty good placings for Marvel Infinite. Pretty lucky to have a pretty strong local scene, and I wanted to become a little bit better in Marvel, or competitively, and sure enough, I started at the end of Marvel 3, so I didn't have a lot of accolades for that, but then I started to, travel more and learn more as a competitor, and got a lot of more results during 2019.
Yeah, I
That's
would
nice.
say that Marvel is the game series that I would associate you the most with. When I think of Nam, I think of Marvel mainly, but as far as like his personality goes, like he's always willing to kind of put himself out there and put himself in new and unique situations, and quite frankly thrive in those situations. And I think that translates to his style of play, which is like one thing I always think of him too as a fighting game player is that he always plays defensive characters in highly offensive games. Um, in games that like
It's true.
there are games that are like really defensive, he won't play those games. Even he only wants to play. He wants to like be the blocker in a game where everyone's trying to strike you.
It's odd. I don't know why. I don't know why I do it, and people always comment on me on like why you block so much? Why don't you just mash? Why don't you do stuff? And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just waiting for you to hang yourself, and I guess that's my main
Yeah.
play style or whatever it is. But yeah, it's like I said. I like you said. I do play a lot of other games besides Marvel, but my background actually doesn't come from Marvel. I would say Marvel is like a tertiary at this point.
Right, right.
Because
Yeah,
you've met
like
me before all that too. Yeah.
I've had the fortune of knowing you since you joined the fighting game community and like seeing all the different games you've tried. And like I said, if you're putting yourself in highly offensive games and trying to block everything out, it's very similar to putting yourself in a new and unique situation, right? You're just trying to go and block in real life.
I think it's super fun, honestly.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. So let's roll things back a little bit. What in terms of your gamer tag, it sounds pretty straightforward, but is there any kind of special origin or story behind it? Is it just something you ran with? Like where did the origin of NinjaNam begin?
So the origin of NinjaNam starts like way back, and I'd have to say like sometime when I was in probably middle school or something, junior
Oh,
high, and I would have this habit of sneaking up behind classmates and tapping on the shoulder, and they turn around and they can't find me. I disappeared into the crowd. And then when later they would find out, like, I'm like, that was you? You were like a ninja. Like I didn't even hear you. I didn't even see you. And that at that point it kind of stuck. It's kind of like a alliteration, Ninja Nam. And I love ninjas.
yeah.
So
He
I
doesn't, right?
yeah, who doesn't? I mean, ninjas are so dang cool. So like, I just kind of ran with it ever since then. And as far as fighting game names go, I wanted to use a name because I had like an online tag as well, also ninja related, um, called Robot Ninja.
Oh, that's
But
right. That's right.
yeah, but I felt like it was a little stupid to be using that name. I mean, I guess it doesn't like it's stupid is subjective, but I wanted a name that people can call me by, just Nam, right? So
Yeah.
that my name would be included in the tag. So you don't have to call me by some crazy tag, like you
You mean
know.
like Samuji?
Sim- See, he didn't see John
Bring
didn't
me
have the
in.
foresight back then, and now look where he's at right now.
Yep,
Casey.
See,
I'm
now
in
he's called Porta
shambles, like
John.
just jumping between names all the time.
Right.
Not
Yeah.
consistent branding like NinjaNam here. Consistent since
Yeah.
high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So people can just call you John instead of Muji or Sumuji, right? And
yeah.
so I thought about that little bit further in advance, and I was like, I'm just gonna use my name NinjaNam,
Yeah.
so that people can just call me Nam. Sure enough, at events, people still call me Ninja for whatever reason, but
Yeah. Yeah, I still call John Muji, like, I still refer to Muji like in our group chats and stuff and things like that. It's just, or even to my kids, I'll say, hey, what do you think about this for Muji or something like that. And like that's how they know him, the whole Muji Con thing.
Muji.
Yeah, I didn't have any consistency with my name when I started Xbox Live when that first came out. My actual first gamer tag was Shikaka from Ace Ventura. Like I thought it would be really
Oh,
really funny at the time because from Ace Ventura for people to be like, oh man, I just lost to Shikaka, and then I would do the whole like the whole bow thing and everything, and I was just like, I ran with that for a few years. I ended up switching to Benny Jr. of all things, literally just Benny Jr. And like I don't know. I don't know if I just thought like you guys and thought maybe I should just put my name out there. And then for some reason, somebody tried to talk trash to me one day, and they were just like, "Hey, Benny Junior, where's Benny Senior?" And I'm like, Do you really think that that's insulting? Like my dad? Like what?" And then I ended up switching to AK Grandmaster V and running with that after I got basically like into the FGC. So
that's pretty funny.
One thing is like I run into this now that I'm doing the Porta John thing, right? And is that like there's a lot of people that are named John, so it actually doesn't do very well with branding wise. Did you run into that problem with Nam? Like as far as like the sheer amount of Asian people are seen.
Look, the only problem that I ran into is that I couldn't claim the NinjaNam handle on Twitter or any other social media. That's the only problem, which is odd because it's not like Nam is sort of a common name for Vietnamese, but it's
Right.
still an Asian name. It's not an English name.
yeah,
So for somebody to have already taken that from me from multiple social media platforms, was a little annoying at first.
yeah.
But thankfully, I already ran with the number 15 during my AOL days. So I used NinjaNam 15 for almost basically every platform. But besides that, I haven't met anyone else named Nam in the fighting game community. In real
Really,
life,
really,
sure, but I have not met one single Nam.
really. I don't know. Actually, I
And
can't
and
think of
better
anybody else.
yet, there's not a lot of people who have their how do I say this? Their in Asian slash Vietnamese names. A lot of them have like either English names or
Yep.
they go by an English alias and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like John, I don't even know if you have a Chinese name.
Yeah, is
I
that your real
do.
name, John?
Yeah, I do have a Chinese name, but
Can you
I'm different in that I'm not an immigrant, so I've never gone by it whatsoever.
can you reveal it?
Do you want to
Kwan
reveal?
Gok Kien. That's my name.
Oh,
Wait, what?
Kwan Gok Kien. I don't actually know enough about
Okay.
which part is the first part and which part's the last part. Kwan is my family name though. So
Oh,
now you know.
okay.
that's cool.
Nice.
I never knew about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no idea. I mean, that's something that for a lot of people that don't know, like having a English or an American name is a big thing. Like that's my mom's kind of the same way. Yeah,
Hmm.
and it's just like it's just something that I mean I don't know. It's just a matter of it's easier for you to say this instead of you to say this. That's usually the thing. Like they'll come here and be like, oh yeah, you could just call me John or call me whatever Barry or something like that. And they're like, oh, how'd you come up with that name? Like that doesn't seem very ethnic. And I'm just like, well, it's because we don't want you to look at our names, at my
I
name and just be like, how do I say that?
I mean, I've been on the other end of that too, where I had a buddy in college. His name was Chi Lin, and he was a foreign exchange student from China. And a lot of people had a hard time pronouncing his name when they were reading on attendance lists because, like, there's too many vowels or something. I don't know. But but he was just like, just call me Bert, and everyone was like,
See? Exactly. See, it's just like,
Bert?
Bert, okay. He just did, like there are times that they don't look like whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't know. I'm just a little there's a bit much here. This is the first all Asian Absolute Guard podcast that we have ever had, I
True.
think. So
Yeah,
there's a lot of history to unearth here.
Yeah, there's just a lot of like it's an Asian American problem, and I had the same issue growing up,
Yeah.
where attendance roll call would happen, and no
yep,
teachers can say my name correctly, or even in the Americanized way. Like Nam is not actually how you pronounce my name. That's the Americanized way that I decided to use for other people to say my name easier.
yeah.
But when I was young, I was like, I wish I had an English name. I wish I had an English name. And now I just don't care.
Wait, what's the correct way to pronounce it?
The correct way to pronounce it is Nam.
Got it.
And of course, this goes with the country that my family is from, of course, Vietnam. And everyone says Vietnam, and I said, well, my name is part of my country. Why don't I just go with Nam? And it seems to be the
Yeah,
easiest way for a lot of people to pronounce my name. Otherwise, people would be saying Nam back in Vietnam and name and like all
yeah,
this stuff.
It's
Yeah.
kind of funny though. There is a little bit of that because yeah, when I think of the gross mispronunciation of it, I think of Southern American Nam, but you
yeah.
do need to have a little bit of that "a" in there when you're pronouncing it because we go hard ah nam. That's wrong, right? So what how did you pronounce it again?
Nam.
Nam. Okay. Okay. There's
That's pretty close. Yeah, that's pretty good.
similar. So maybe the Southern people have it right. I'm straw manning, but
Vietnamese
So
is a
how
very
about
tonal language, so I don't blame you for being able to pronounce anything correctly.
yeah? So how about in terms of like fighting games? You mentioned that you said Marvel's probably tertiary to you. What's the origin of Ninja Dom and his fighting game history?
So I'm I grew up kind of weird, and I actually did not play a lot of other video games. I actually played primarily fighting games. And I don't know why that is, but I didn't have a choice in the game that was purchased for us. With my family, of course, my brother just bought whatever. So I
Yeah,
would usually just play video games with my brother. So if it's got to be like multiplayer, so fighting games. So I just play a bunch of fighting games my whole life, and then it would have to be probably Street Fighter 4, of course, as a somewhat of an 09er that would bring light to the competitive scene for me. And it actually happened a little bit earlier. I had this neighbor called his name was Sean. Shout out to Sean. His name is Sudu Spot. He We moved and he just came over and he was like, "Oh, you play fighting games? Let me show you how to really play fighting games." And he just kicked our ass. And I said, what? And he played like all these execution and heavy characters in every fighting game. So then that would then lead me into Street Fighter 4, and then I would learn about, oh, there's a competitive scene. I learned about the Arizona scene. My first tournament was actually at the Bookman's in Mesa
okay.
for Super Street Fighter 4 when the game just came out.
oh
Um,
yeah, I
yeah,
remember that.
I bet you were there, and I didn't know, but I was a stream monster. I was like a forum monster. No one really knew who I was.
I think it's
Um,
worth noting that if you were a stream monster in that era, you were the first stream monster. That was around when streaming was becoming a
Yeah,
thing, right? So
yep,
yep.
yep. So
yeah.
I looked at Shoryuken forums and I read all your messages and I went on Twitch and I saw the Hazbats, if you may. So those were like the really old, like the '09 and like '10. So my first tournament would be 2010, but I
Okay.
wouldn't really compete in any other tournament in Street Fighter because actually I would get into Blaze Blue because that's what me and my friends were playing at the time. So we were playing Blaze Blue, and I would then meet the anime community,
Right.
and I would play tournaments, on and off, like a Devastation or at other Rambats and stuff like that for Blaze Blue. So actually, I have origins in both like Street Fighter and anime games. And I still play Marvel though. I played Marvel 3, but I was playing it very casually at the time.
That's kind of
Uh,
interesting because like
yeah.
if you had to think about as far as like what would be a cross between Street Fighter and anime, it would be Marvel.
Yeah,
So
actually,
I,
it's very
I
true. It's very true.
I remember when I first met you in the fighting game community, like you did have roots with both the Capcom people and the anime people. And back then, that was around when we were more segregated, because at that point, Street Fighter 4 had come out, and the anime folks were still doing like playing Melty Blood Casuals at the Melty House and whatnot at that point. But Street Fighter 4 was just like, a bunch of different places popped up and gatherings happened then and there. So, but there wasn't a ton of cross pollination, I don't think, until Blaze Blue came out, and then I saw Blaze Blue more at Dorian's place, and then I saw whenever Nam came over, he hung out with the Blaze Blue folks. So, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I didn't really, go to the Melty House or Dorian's. I was over at Ruben's, if you know who Ruben is, and he had hosted a lot of these anime casuals. So I would, you know, meet a lot of these people, and even then, some of these Capcom players would even come to these casuals,
Sure.
and I would then meet some of those guys. But actually, the first time I had met you, John, was at Gothland.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Gothland Sunsplash. It was right when Arcade Edition came out, and me and my buddy Jason wanted to, we watched a lot of the location tests in Japan, loc tests. So, we decided to, let's imitate, kind of the same thing. We had our own YouTube channel, we had our own podcast as well.
Oh, really? I
So
didn't know about any of that.
yeah, so I
What
actually
was it
did
called?
host a
What was it
podcast.
called?
It was called Majide Cast.
Majide?
Majide is seriously, means seriously in
Oh, yeah.
Japanese. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it was called Majide Cast, and we would talk about games. We would talk about a lot of fighting games, of course. I would go to this Gothland and, prop up a little camera or right there, record our sessions. And I looked over and I said, I think those are the Arizona scene right over there. I want to go play them. So I went over there. I went to go sit down and play. You guys were very welcoming, by the way. So it was very nice that I met you. And I sat down. I played this Blanca player. I beat him. He
Louis.
was very upset.
Yep.
Turns out it was scumbag Louis, and he stormed off. I said, I don't really know what's his problem, but it's cool. And then you sat down and you beat me up, and then you shook my hand and you said, hey, what's up? You should come by to the Arizona community. We run tournaments, and the rest is history.
Nice.
Did I tell you that, like, to go to Az's place, or is that how that went, or
I think you first mentioned about the forums and how most of the information was transferred through the forums, and I
got
told
it?
you, well, I'm already in the forum. I was just a big, I was just a big lurker at the time. Yeah.
Do you remember that actually? So in the interest of transparency for our podcast here, Nam and I actually had this conversation at a party recently, and I could not remember it for the life of me. And it wasn't just because I was drinking. Actually, I was drinking then, and I'm drinking now. But either way,
Cheers.
cheers. Either way, like I remember because my first memory of Nam was at Hasm's place, or at Team Hazmat's place, which I'm sure we're going to get into during the course of this episode here. But I remember him showing up at a tournament, but apparently this Golfland thing happened before that. So I'm trying to like piece together. I'm like, okay, so I met him at Golfland, and then how did you end up going to play in those tournaments, the Hazbat tournaments? Exactly. Was it through Shoryuken?
Uh,
It sounds like.
yeah, a lot of it. See, the thing is that I had lived in Gilbert at the time,
Hmm.
and I mean like Gilbert, like
East Gilbert.
Val Vista, if you know where that is, right?
Yeah.
So to get to Hasm's, which is Southern Phoenix, no, Levine,
Yeah.
it's like easily 40 to 50 minutes
Yep.
just to get there, zero traffic. So I was like a college student at the time, and couldn't really justify driving that far. But once I started to play more Capcom games, because at the time Hasm's wasn't really running anime games. He would later on actually, Rambats would then introduce Blaze Blue and would give me more incentive to join the Rambats to play in both Blaze Blue and Street Fighter. But actually, I don't think I played any Street Fighter tournaments. I just played casuals,
Got it.
and that's
Okay.
where I met you, I met Dana, and I met all the other Capcom crew there as well.
Because there was I remember it now. Actually, you know what? Let me back up real quick. For our viewers, right? We've talked briefly a couple episodes ago with Tanner about Team Hazmat, and I think it's worth like kind of level setting with the audience and with our group here about like what Team Hazmat was or is, and like where they place in the Arizona timeline here. So we're talking around Arcade Edition, so about 2011, 2012 or so. Maybe actually 2010 is when Arcade Edition first came out.
Wait. Super Street Fighter was 2010.
Oh, my bad.
Arcade Edition was 2011.
2011. Okay, thank you. So 2011 is rolling around. It's around that time, and there are several other game releases around that time as well. But there was a player named Hazm who he joined our scene and wanted to do more than just play. He wanted to host, and what we found out later was actually break into the streaming business. And at that time, again, I mentioned it earlier, but streaming wasn't really a thing for a good majority of the fighting game community, honestly, until probably around like 2014 or 2015 or so. But like that's when it became ubiquitous. But being at the start, like it was people like Spooky and the folks at Super Arcade. Yeah,
Super Arcade,
I forget his name. Armando. His name is Armando as well. So I remember being like, "Oh yeah, we have an Armando in our scene too." So yeah, like those folks like led the way, and then Hazm like became that for us in Arizona. And so what he did is he streamed and put a lot of like the Arizona talent, which was already known throughout the community, but he put it more up in people's faces as far as the stream goes. Yeah. This new medium whatsoever, or new medium, and like let's just like put Arizona on display on this new medium, show it on Twitter, show it on YouTube, etc. And so what he ended up doing is he had this big house in Levine, Arizona, which was a very long distance from Gilbert, as Nam mentioned, and he hosted tournaments. And so we've talked about Ranbats. So he ran his own version of Ranbats. So he ran it in a season, and he called them Hazbats. I remember the Hazbat was capitalized uniquely to highlight the A and the Z because his name was spelled H-A-Z. And in general, he just became kind of like the roof over the fighting game community for Arizona for a good period of time. So
yeah, I guess with Nami, that's why I don't associate you with the Street Fighter for me personally, because like I came into the scene in 2012. That my first one was like the second Street Fighter season at the Hazbats, and yeah, I mean like you said, it was a trek to get there because there was no highway access, kind of like there is today. Like you have to go down baseline, which for those that don't know, baseline runs from pretty much like east to west across all of Phoenix, Gilbert, like way east, and like I went there a few times. I would pick up Mr. SNK Nico in Mesa, and then we would drive. And I just remember it taking like 30 minutes. So if you were down in Val Vista, like you said, which is about 15 more minutes further east, like yeah, that's a trek to get down there for sure. Because like you can't, there's no highway. You got to take baseline, which is like 45, So it's like it takes a while to get down there. Yeah. It takes a while to get down there if you're in the East Valley for sure.
Yeah, like I lived in Tempe, and it was still a half an hour drive from me, and I would I had a friend who would drive from Gilbert and then meet me at my place, and then we would carpool to Haz's. And I honestly though, like like we talk about that in a negative connotation, and as far as like it taking so long, but like I don't think I would have become as good of friends with that person if we hadn't had those long car rides together every week.
Exactly. I just wanted to mention, I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about. That was Dana. Friend of yours, Dana, lived like several blocks down from me. We lived in the same area actually. I didn't know that until much later on.
I still am puzzled at times when I invite both of you guys. I'm like, man, you guys live so far. Why don't you carpool? But I think that happened a couple times.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Benny.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I have to agree with you in terms of those long car drives. Commuting with carpooling with Nico. Like I would always be the one to drive because he was on the way. So I would pick him up. We'd go down there, and like you guys said, like it's 30-35 minutes to get down there. So we'd chop it up. I mean, he was already kind of my mentor and like my first like established good friend here in Arizona, and that kind of just helped things along the way. You have an hour round trip. You're not gonna sit there and okay, we'll just be quiet and we go down here, right? You guys are gonna talk about stuff to your families or whatever, and like he ended up becoming one of my best friends in the scene, just and I think that definitely helped out too. So I mean, I don't see it as a negative at all.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right, Nam. So you saw us at the arcades, and then you started going to tournaments at Hasm's. Like, where are we at now in your history?
Um, so I started going to Hasm's, and it was around during the anime era. Um, and I was playing Blaze Blue. So there's actually videos. Actually, I think the channel got deleted, so you can't really find those videos anymore. But I did reminisce over them sometimes. So I had wanted to play. I was still playing Marvel and Street Fighter on the side, I believe, and I was a very big like kung fu kind of enthusiast. I was playing Fei Long and I was playing Iron Fist, and I had created this team that was in my mind revolutionary because it would then utilize the full potential of my characters with raw tags and the mechanic systems and stuff like that. But Persona 4 Arena came out, and I'm a big fan of Persona. So Persona 4 Arena came out, and I said I will drop absolutely everything, and just focus on Persona. So that was about 2012, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, so around 2012, and I tried to go quote unquote all in. I'm still a pretty bad player. I would say I'm like a casual competitive, and I would try to compete in Persona. I didn't really have a lot of success in it, but then again, our scene, Arizona scene, has a very powerful anime play. Have a lot of great players. Marvin, Justin, even Tubazo was very strong in anime as well. Ryan,
Ryan. Yeah, I
Wrath
was gonna say, don't talk
came
about
out
Persona without talking about Ryan.
came out of nowhere. This kid came out of nowhere and was beating people, and
Yeah.
he was just an online warrior. And look at him now. He's a content creator. He's gotten top eights and
Yeah.
multiple majors. Like this guy came out of nowhere. So I said, oh man, I don't think this is the game for me. And then around the time, this player named Nemo created a team that would be a better version of my team. And I said, dang it, he he showed the world before I did, even though I created it before he did. So I went back to Marvel 3, and I wanted to showcase Iron Fist. I was kind of done with Persona at the time, and I wanted to get a little bit more in touch with the Capcom scene and play a little bit more Marvel 3. And that's when I really connected with you, John, Armando, Natsoy, Forward, Wenster, formerly known as Physicups Friedman now. Like all of you guys have been, there with open arms, and you guys were like, yeah, just come, let's play some casuals, and that's where my career as a Marvel player kicked off, which was when I transitioned back into Marvel as a competitive player, and then you guys would then yell at me to stop playing Iron Fist.
Do you, out of curiosity, do you consider yourself a Marvel player in 2022? Like at heart?
Oh, that's a
That's
really good question
a,
because I haven't touched Marvel in a very long time.
Sure.
And the biggest problem is I still love Marvel, and I consider myself as a Marvel person, not as a player. I would still enter tournaments, and I actually go 0 and 2 now, which is you know I haven't gone 0 and 2 in a very, very long time. And
Sure.
I felt like now that I've been so out of touch and so rusty, I can't even win one game in any of these tournaments anymore because I've been focusing a lot of my time currently in games like King of Fighters 15 and Guilty Gear Strive. I think Guilty Gear Strive is probably my most focused game uh, currently.
Okay.
I
So
mean, yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because I think, like, yeah, I think if I was to join a Street Fighter 5 tournament now, I mean, there's a strong possibility I go 0-2 also. Like, I think I went to TGZ a couple years ago and you know didn't recognize a lot of people and like players that were playing characters that I wasn't used to seeing, like Cody and some other people, and I'm just like, man, who are these people? And like, occasionally I'd get a win here and there, but then like, yeah, there's definitely a lot of new blood, and like you said, if you're not playing or you're not active, like you know, you could definitely go 0 and 2. Like I
yeah.
just for me personally, like I'll always be a Street Fighter player at heart. It doesn't matter if I don't play it for the next 5 years. Like I'll pick up Street Fighter 2 and like that's my game. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you mentioned a
Like
very good point. You said at heart though, right?
Yeah, it's because it's an identity thing fundamentally, right? It's like
At heart, yeah,
like because
I would say
ultimately
so.
your tournament like your tournament results currently don't really matter a ton. It's whether or not you consider yourself that. Because
Yeah,
everybody I think has their DNA coded in, or not DNA. That's a wrong way to put it, but like it's
I
coded into
get
their
you.
fighting game DNA,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't
so,
know. I guess
like with your
it's more of like
yeah,
what people think of you, because I think when people think of me, like even to this day, people just associate me with like Honda and Street
yep,
Fighter 4. Even
yeah,
after playing Street Fighter 5 Sim for the last whatever 6 years,
yeah. I
like
know that's
he was just telling me 3 days ago. He's just like, yeah, you're a Honda player, and I was just like, man, I haven't been a Honda player for like 6 years. What are you talking about? But that's
doesn't
just
matter.
that's who you're identified with. And like yeah, like
Yeah,
you said, Marvel, like I identify you with like the Doctor Strange. Completely forgot about the Iron Fist thing, but I associate you with the Doctor Strange team. So that's what I think of like when I think of Nam and like who he plays or what game he plays. It's like Marvel and Doctor Strange. Like that's what I think of.
no, you're right. And now that you mention that, truly at heart, I do identify myself with Marvel. And Doctor Strange is my consistent character. I That's probably like one of my favorite comic book characters at this point. Very weird because like I wasn't paying attention to any of the Doctor Strange um comics at the time, but
yeah, same.
through fighting games
Yep.
and through the quote unquote functions, I would then come to love Doctor Strange actually. So
Can you just imagine there's something crazy about the fact that that game let me think of it. Sorry. So Doctor Strange 2 came out last year, right?
mhm.
And so suddenly it became hip to be like I know a lot about Doctor Strange because it was in pop culture at that point in time. And can you imagine being a fighting game player and be like I'm going to explain what Flames of the Faltine is to you? And like the average person is going to be expecting a comic book lore dump, and I'm going to be like, no, it causes a soft knockdown, and then it allows him to combo into the back fierce, which causes another soft knockdown.
It's just links.
Yeah, it's just and so the whole time, like he's doing musical battles with Rachel McAdams in the background. I'm like, oh my fucking, soft
You know
knockdown.
what's okay? You know what's really funny is that in that movie he does a move where at the very beginning of the movie he's fighting that tentacle monster, and he like sets this green fire on top of this like monster, and I quietly said Flames of the Faltine because I knew. Well, actually, I didn't say quietly. I actually said, "Oh my God, that's Flames of the Faltine," and then my friends like beside me are like, "What is that?" So
Yeah, see,
soft knockdown. So
I, I haven't seen that movie, but like I'm sure I'm not the only one. You guys probably do it too. It's like when I watch things like that, and I just relate it in terms of like fighting games, right? Like if I see somebody get punched, I'd be like, oh man, the startup on that move was really quick, right? Or something like that. Like I watch movies like stuff like that, so like I just have this different lens when I watch stuff now. I'm just like, oh man, he blocked that and punished it or whatever. Or the recovery on that was terrible. Like, come on, man.
I'm gonna go hella meta here, and the reason why I even asked that identity question a while back was because I do I want to underscore like what the Arizona Marvel scene is because like it's not just we played the competitive fighting game together. It's like we bonded and became friends together. And like there's those roots were strong and they continue to last to this day. And so like it's really not a stretch to think of Marvel as almost an identity thing. So when I say Marvel at heart, like we have somebody in the chat, not Soy, who's cheering us on like as part of the community, right? And so I even think of like we went and saw Iron Man 3 together, I think, as a big group. And I remember just to echo Benny's story here, Iron Man did a thing where he shot a beam out of his chest, and then Not So said Unibeam in the movie theater.
Yes.
So like it is like so Nam, I don't mean to take the spotlight away from you in any way, but like this your being on our show right now is just like a catharsis for the Marvel scene and what it meant for us in that era. I think like in that we forged like beautiful long lasting friendships and encountered a lot of unique situations, and I'm curious about hearing more about your fighting game history and more about some of those unique situations.
um, I mean, I'm not really too sure where to start, but what I will echo with you is that the Marvel scene really has become another family for me. And even if you yourself don't play Marvel, I still consider you as part of that family altogether. And I still
That's
hang
great.
out with some of these Marvel players nowadays.
Yeah,
And some and the group has, somewhat expanded, whether it's people who have moved into it or what, people who have joined the Marvel because they're late bloomers or whatever it is. It
yeah,
is very beautiful. And I think at the same time, another group that has been very nice to me, and this is the reason why I play fighting games, is the friends that you've made along the way. And I know it
I
sounds really corny. It sounds really corny,
yeah.
but my favorite thing to do after a TGZ tournament, and I'm sure John knows this, is we go to tailgate. We go to tailgate.
Yep.
We go to the dive bar, literally a few steps over. We have some drinks. We talk, and we just laugh, and we just hang out. That
Yeah,
that's the beauty of fighting games to me.
yeah,
That's why I love meeting and having these like friend groups of
yeah,
in fighting games. And it's not just Marvel, it's not just Street Fighter, it's just, whoever I can meet. And both you two, John and Benny, I've shared drinks with you and we've had good talks, and that's all I wanted. Like, I'm
yeah,
not here to try to play casual till 5 in the morning. Okay, like my time is done with that. We're old and I can't do all that. But if you wanted to talk till 8 a.m. in the morning, I'll gladly do that. And
yeah. I
that's
mean,
that's that's kind of what I live for.
yeah. I mean, it's like it's kind of cliche, like the whole FGC is family kind of thing. But like for me, like yeah, I've got a ton of lifelong friends from Alaska that that I always tried to meet up with when I went to Evo. Even here in Arizona, like made a lot of great friends. I still remember, like it's funny you said like even if you don't really play Marvel, like I remember I entered like a Marvel tournament at TGC because you guys
You
needed
did.
like you needed to fill in 8 people. And you're just like, hey, come on, just make the bracket even. And I was like, sure. And then like I got to a point in Marvel where I was like I didn't like where the game was going in terms of like the infinites and stuff. Like that was kind of where my limit was. Like I didn't want to learn all that. I
Mhm.
was like, I'm just gonna play the team that I play and whatever this is, right? And I remember just doing some like weird ass mix ups, and you were just like, "Holy, you got mix ups?" And I was just like, "Yeah." I was like, I still know how to play the game. I'm like, I'm not on your guys' level, but like that's probably the one game that I love the most. That I was probably the most terrible at. Like, there was a casual session in Alaska at one of my friend's house where I forgot the team that my friend played. I think he played like Ghost Rider, Iron Fist, and somebody else. It was some obscure team. And like I couldn't for the life of me beat him at all. I went like 0 and 30, and like I just kept on rematching because I was just like I was still having a ball. Like even though
Yeah.
like I'm over here getting changed from full screen and just dying, I was just like, you know what? I'm still having fun. Like so I still enjoy watching that
You're
game and
yeah.
participating.
You're not the only one. Marvel has always been the game that people really want to play, but have been the most intimidated by.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's,
I get a lot of people in our local scene asking me for tips and stuff like that. And, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'm here to help, stuff like that." And I answer a lot of questions.
Did you ever have anybody like come up to you and be like, "Hey, I saw you on the forums, and I know exactly who you are."
Um, are you talking about then or now?
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. The joke
Um,
was, yeah, like similar to what. Like, well, I actually do want to
oh,
underscore
for
that,
what I
but
did to you?
honestly, though, like
Yeah.
you are kind of like I think you are a lot of people's first glimpse into the Arizona scene. I think that they see you on commentary, or they see you playing, or they see you in the outgoing personality that you are,
yeah.
and oftentimes they come to you with the same questions that you came to me with, which is like, how do I get more games? I'm just interested in joining the scene, right? And I feel like you've done probably more of that than I ever did at this point.
A little bit. I think even now, back then, people had a lot of questions for me. Stuff like, "Oh, you used to play Iron Fist. I'm still playing Iron Fist," or, any of the characters that I play, Nova, Spencer, Strange, etc. Even now, this is a very weird feeling to me. Someone came up to me at Evolution 2022 this year, literally last month.
Yeah.
They said, "Are you Ninja Nam?" I'm wearing a mask, by the way, so I don't even know how they recognize me.
Yeah.
And they said, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Ninja Nam." I'm like, "Big fan of yours. Like, really love your commentary and like things you do." And I'm like, "Whoa!" I'm like, "This is post COVID. I'm not very active, but
Yeah.
it still feels cool that new blood is still paying attention and recognizing people and are very interested in wanting to attend these events because of these players slash commentators slash streamers or whatever it is, right? And that always keeps me humble and allows me to validate that what I do does have impact on other players.
Yeah.
So yes, people actually do come up to me and say that kind of stuff, which is
Yeah.
still pretty odd to me. I feel like I'm a nobody sometimes, but you know,
Yeah, I think you
it's
put it
something.
perfectly in terms of like, yeah, Marvel. Yeah, that definitely was. It's one of those games. Like, yeah, I felt like it's something that I wanted to get good at, and then I was just like, yeah, there's definitely a lot of intimidation factor. I did actually go 2-2 at Evo for Marvel one time, but those were two DQs. But I take
We take
those.
those.
Yeah,
We
but
take
no.
those.
See, the thing was, I want to say what I forgot what year it was, but like, I remember just sitting around and like the first two people I had to play, like for whatever reason, that it's Evo, and I don't know, I didn't even recognize the name, but they were holding up the bracket forever, and I'm just like, come on, dude, it's like 45 minutes in. I was like, DQ this first guy, and they're just like, no, he's on his way. Finally, like an hour in, they DQ him. And I was like, all right, cool, I'm 1-0, right? Then I'm waiting for the next guy. We waited like another half hour. They DQ that guy finally, and I'm just like, all right, cool, I'm 2-0. How far am I getting in the bracket? Then who do I play first? I play a Morgan player. I didn't even get to play, and I was just like, "Oh, this is cool." But, but yeah, it's definitely one of those games. Like, yeah, I wanted to get good at it, and just like, yeah, I just never decided. I was kind of just content, just being where I was at, and just
Hmm.
having fun with with what I knew.
Yeah, I get that.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
So this was Marvel 3 that we're talking about here as far as like those adventures, Benny. But then Marvel Infinite comes out. I want to. It was in 2016, I think. 17.
So,
17.
2017. So we've we haven't done Marvel 3 justice. Like there's a lot to be said about that community. I think we can unpack that
Oh yeah.
later. But in the interest
yeah,
of continuing your fighting game history, Nam. So Marvel 3, sunsets. I say that very like with air quotes, huge air quotes. It sunsets, and then Marvel Infinite comes out. And so, what are your reactions to it? Like do you end up picking that game up? I think we know the ending of the story, but feel free.
Yeah. Marvel Infinite came out September 2017, and I had I had made a decision that I wanted to become a better player, and the only way to become a better player was to travel. There was just no ifs and arounds it. I think that I'm not like some super talented player that I can just, play online, which is impossible for Marvel, at the time
Right,
because netcode was terrible, and
for
I
Marvel
had
3,
to
right?
for Marvel 3, correct, yeah. I had to put myself out there and to put my own money on the line and just to experience to be able to play as much players as possible, to put myself on the line and to just learn. So 2017 rolled around and they announced Marvel Infinite. Um, I was there at PSX actually, oddly enough, and they announced it, and I made the decision right then and there. The final year of Marvel 3, I'm going all out. I'm gonna travel to as many majors as possible. So I flew out to and a friend of mine quoted, they said, I feel like you were at an event every month. And I said, no, there's no way. I counted and I actually was at an event every single month, if not twice a month. I really did travel that much.
Wow.
And I took my lickings, I got beat up, but at the same time, I really did learn. And at the same time, I still grew a bond with the Marvel scene. Because the Marvel scene to me is a scene that cannot be compared with anyone else. And I know I'm biased, but if you have ever been with the Marvel scene, um, we do not act like any other scene. We are degens, we are loud, we are crazy, but at the same time, we're friends. Rick actually said that we know how to party, and I'm not entirely too sure what that means, but yeah,
I
that
do.
goes to show you. Well, of course, you've been part of it. But that goes to show you that the community is very deep within our hearts. So I traveled a lot during that time. Then Marvel Infinite came out, and I would then get my first top 8 at a major for Pasadena Regionals in Marvel 3. and that gave me a very big boost of confidence, and that's what I needed to enter into Marvel Infinite. So I didn't travel for Marvel Infinite until half a year later, which is in 2018,
Okay.
2017.
Hmm.
I want to say
Yeah.
2018. Am I wrong on that? Yes,
Ha-
2018. Yeah. So 2018, I started traveling. I had some pretty good results, and in 2019, I had some really good results too. 2018, I
Yeah.
played. If you guys don't know about Marvel Infinite, they use a stone system,
Yeah.
and so in the stone system, there's two big winners, two and a half, and then I played Luna. I played a stone which is called Time Stone, and Time Stone was regarded as one of the worst stones of the game. But I wanted to really push the stone as far as I could because I saw potential,
Hmm.
and I played a lot. And it also helps that I had a hard breakup and I became single, and put dedicated a lot of time,
Oh.
dedicated a lot of time into Marvel at the time because I had nothing better to do. But
MVCI became your girlfrin't, basically.
yeah, I had a relationship with Marvel Infinite, and
Yeah.
it was a give and take. It was nice. Um, didn't have to pay dinners for any of that. Anyways, yeah, so I dedicated a lot of time and I traveled a pretty good amount for it, and I had pretty good results in 2018. I had top eights, I had CEO, other majors, NCR, um, SCR. Yeah, SoCal Regionals, I got third. And then there would be a lull, of course, after Evo, there's always a lull. And then
Yeah.
2019, I would come back. I would then now start using Space Stone, which is the stronger stone of the game. And I still had strong results there, like you said. Final round, I had third place.
Yeah.
Um, Fifth place at Naptown Clutch, and I got third place at a basically it was a tour, a community ran tour. So we did a community ran tour. I got third place there. Evo, I got fourth place. You know, et cetera, et
Wait,
cetera.
sorry. You
It
got
was
third place in the entire tour, like
yeah,
over the course of
tour
multiple
finals.
tournaments.
Sorry, tour finals.
Oh, even so, that's still that's the culmination of the tour. Then in the finals. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the time at the finals, I actually performed very well. I beat two of the top three players, considered players at the time of that tour, which was Stealth and Tyson, and
Right.
they were like winning events. Well, Stealth was considered as the best player in America at the time. So I was really like focusing and dedicating my time to it. So I had really good results at the time. And I think my last tournament then would be Frosty Faustings in 2020.
Okay.
Okay.
I got fifth there, I think, and then COVID happened, and I kind of fell off of Marvel at that moment
Yeah.
when COVID happened.
So basically,
Fighting games,
you had a
really.
string of top eights at different majors, though. That's pretty legit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. Very cool.
yeah. I had a lot of strong placings, and you know, I'm very grateful for a lot of people who supported me along the way. But when COVID hit, you know, everything changed for sure for me at
Yeah.
least.
Well, yeah, for sure. In terms of like you mentioned, like wanting to travel more, and that's how you felt was like going to be the best way for you to improve. Um, do you think that the travel in itself and like just being exposed to those better players out there, like did you have like kind of like sessions with like hotel sessions or whatever with like the other people like when you would travel? Do you think that helped you out a lot?
I think what it was that it all comes down to experience.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of people like to say that you can't truly learn, and the way to best learn is either to A, play in a tournament, or B, money match.
Yeah.
So in a way that kind of helped me, but I think that it wasn't I'm not a great grinder. I think that a
Yeah.
lot of players can grind till like 5 in the morning. I can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not me. And at
Yeah.
the same time, I'm not like some sort of prodigy or some talented guy that can learn in like 3 games or something like that. It takes me a lot of games to learn.
Yeah.
But what really helped me is that I network with people. I
Okay.
would go to these tournaments, I network with players, Some of them would be good friends, and some of them would just be, strong acquaintances that I would meet through these tournaments, and I would discuss with them. I would talk about, hey, can I get some feedback? Like,
Yeah.
what is it that I'm doing wrong? What is it that I'm doing right? And they would be very friendly, and they would give me feedback, and I would take that to heart, and I would try to incorporate that into my play next time.
Yeah.
So for me, I just um I live a very different lifestyle. It's like fighting games isn't my life, so I have to try to become better in more efficient ways.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta be more
What
efficient, gotta maximize your time, that kind of thing.
hmm Yeah,
Yeah.
I think discussing really helps with me. I think thinking about the game while I'm doing mundane things is also pretty good for me. But I simply just cannot dedicate my entire, whatever it is. I have work, I have social. Okay,
Yeah.
this is being a little, pretentious. I'm not trying to say that fighting game players don't have social lives,
No,
but
no, no.
I
No, I
just
got
have
you.
other things going on, and I'm trying to prioritize or balance my life with it. So, like you said, actually going to these events, it's not just the casuals, it's the discussion actually that actually helps
Yeah,
me the most.
yeah, yeah. That's something that I get told a lot too, because like I've never been in that kind of like upper echelon of players, and I think part of that is like one is like just my lack of commitment to dedicating that time, right? Like I'm not
Yeah.
a grinder type person, and I'm the type of like I always consider I kind of find it funny anyway. Like I go by Grandmaster B, and like I've always just considered myself like a B tier player, right? Like I'm a gatekeeper. Like I have my moments against those top guys, but I'm never like up there, right? And
Yeah.
that's something that I get told by a lot of people, especially like I was bringing my family to tournaments, and they'd be like, "Man, how do you consistently still do fairly well, right? Like I'm not winning, I'm not I get a top 8 here and there, but it's just like, how are you consistently doing that well? And you have a family, like I don't have shit, like I'm a single dude, whatever, and I'm over here going 1 and 2, and I'm just like, I don't know, maybe it's just like a mental thing for me, like I just have like, I don't need like you said, like, I don't need to grind. Like, I normally, like, there'd be times, like, I'd lose a Ranbat or I'd do bad at a Ranbat. I'd play, like, maybe 1 or 2 days in the week and then give myself, like, a week break. And other people, like, they feel like, "Oh, I need to go grind and blah, blah, blah. I need to play for hours so I can do better the next time." I never felt like I needed to do that. Like, I felt like I needed, like, the mental break and I needed, like, the to kinda, like, reset myself. And then I'd go into the next Ranbat and all of a sudden it's just like, "Oh, man, I got ninth. Like, I did a lot better than last time." You know what I mean? Something like that.
It's all mental. I think
Yeah.
at this point it's all mentality. And what I learned is like you have to prepare your mentality. If you have a strong mentality, you can overcome a lot of obstacles. You may not have to like win necessarily, like you said, but like, you got a family of 3 kids, and like,
Yeah.
we got a lot of stuff going on. So even just seeing improvement is a lot of self-satisfaction, to be able to see that improvement. It's
Yeah,
just all mentality.
I think the other thing too was like it's in terms of like ego, like like I said with Marvel, right? I got to a point to where I understood where I was at and I was content and I was okay with that. There's a lot of people that I hear like from when they play games, like if they're not doing well, like it brings them down horribly, right? Like it's just like, oh man, I'm doing terribly, blah blah blah, and it's just like it brings them down like really bad. Like I can go to a tournament and it's just like if I was going to a Marvel tournament, I go 0-2, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. I don't put a ton of time in this. Like, maybe that's not the best way to think about it, but it's just like I
Mhm.
was content. Like I'm okay with that. There's other people like, they go to Street Fighter tournaments, they go 0-2 and they're just like, man, I just put all this time and I was playing online. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And I'm just like, huh? Like, why does this weigh so heavily on you? Like, I don't know. That's just me, maybe. I don't know.
I
No,
mean,
no, you're
uh,
right. I'm sorry to cut you off.
no,
Go
go
ahead.
for it. So as far as
Um,
like the mindset topic goes, though, right? Because like, um, I think that have you guys ever had that experience before where you take a break, like you're playing for a long time and then you suck ass and then you take a break either because you need it because you need a break or because you're frustrated, one of the two, and then you come back and you end up doing better despite not practicing.
Yeah, exactly. That's
I
those are
I always have that actually.
those are
Yeah.
the exact situations, right? And then I think it's like kind of like a mental reset for me, right? Like maybe for me, like I'm just developing bad habits playing so much, or I'm doing things that I shouldn't be doing, and like stepping away from the game and then kind of coming back. It's like I kind of just have like a fresh perspective, or I approach things differently, and it's just like, you know what, that's not a big deal. Here's a new day, time to go forward, that kind of thing.
I have this mentality that I tell myself a lot. I tell myself every time I lose, and this happened a lot during 2017 during my Marvel 3 run, was I said every time I got ninth, that shit hurt. Pardon my
Yeah.
language. That really hurt. I
Yeah.
got ninth at a lot
Yeah.
of these major events. And
Yeah.
then I said, it is not my time yet. My time will come soon. Just keep working at it. Don't rush it. Just keep working at it. And my time would come a little bit later on. And then I said, that's cool. And I actually that helped me a lot because when the frustration hits and you're like, oh man, I gotta hit the lab, I gotta grind, I gotta put more time in, and that's not the wrong mindset, but it's a
It's not for
somewhat of
everybody.
a toxic mindset, if I want to say. It's unhealthy. It's not toxic. I would just say unhealthy overall, and that you don't want to burn yourself out in terms of competitiveness, where you're just throwing yourself like just head first, just running at the wall, and you're trying to break the wall. But instead of breaking the wall, you need to understand that you need to walk around it, and
Uh,
that's how I try to approach my
Yeah.
learning experiences, which is that you can solve these. You just have to learn every to how to walk around it. And if it's their first time, then so be it. It's not your time. It's not your time to
yeah.
make top 8, or it's not your time to break top 4 or win the event or whatever it is. It's just that these are learning experiences, and that
Yeah.
you're learning, and you just have to take them
Yeah.
as they come.
I I I think that actually kind of plays into this theme of control. And what that means is like when somebody takes a big loss and then they instantly attribute it to, oh, I just need to I need to go to the lab more. I wish I had practiced this mix up more. I wish I had not dropped my combo, right? What that does is it takes the player's mindset and says, I'm going to say that I had control of this outcome, and if I had just done X, Y, or Z, I would have maintained control of this outcome, and it would have been the outcome that I wanted.
Yeah.
And I think to echo what you said here, as far as like it's a wall that you walk around, right? And so I think a lot of it is just accepting that you don't have control over every aspect of it. Maybe practicing that combo would have helped you win the game, but probably not. At least at the highest level, when you're at ninth and you're trying to break into eighth, it's less so about like, here's a specific game mechanic thing that I dropped, and if I had just fixed that, the number would have gone from 9 to 8, right? Like, it's not as simple as that. It's about accepting the things that you can't control and then walking around them and playing around them, which is Marvel 3 in a nutshell, isn't it?
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, that's Marvel, right?
Wow, that's actually the biggest thing about Marvel games is that acceptance. A lot of people cannot accept the bullshit
Yeah.
that happens in that game. And once you actually accept that things are not in your control, it's just that you have to understand that there are variables. And once you know that, okay, there's this variable and this variable, this might happen, this might happen. I need to control the, whatever it is, the worst variable that could happen, and whatever happens, happens. If it happens, you know, it it is
Exactly.
what it is.
Yeah, it's that whole salt factor, like
Yeah.
like Hulk stand H. Why does it hit behind him? I don't know, but that's just how it is, right? Why is the hitbox on foot dive? His whole body or whatever it is, right? Like why is it like this? Like you got to get to that point where you just like, well, this is how it is. Either I can play that character and I can exploit this too, or I just got to deal with this. And that's why like it's funny. Like I watch when I watch Marvel streams or whatever, you see a lot of head shaking, right? They're just like, oh man, I can't believe that worked, right?
That's
It's
a
like,
good,
oh,
yeah.
Dry smile
That's
with
true.
that
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah.
Very
Yeah.
dry smile.
Yeah, it's either the shaking of the head or it's just the nodding and I'm just like, man, that was some good shit right there, right? Like, you know what I mean? And it's just like like there's those people that just accept it. They just like, man, that was a good mix up. Like, yeah, I got hit.
There's even the other side of it when you win and you're like, and you're like nodding and smiling, not because you won, but because you know you got away with some bullshit that you
Yeah,
shouldn't have gotten
yeah,
away
exactly.
with, right?
Yeah, it's just like I can't believe that shit worked. You
I
know,
can't
Happens to
believe
me
so
all
that
the
fucking
time.
worked.
Happens to me all the time. I'm mashing Team Super with Spencer Anchor, and I'm like, look, you know it's Spencer Anchor. I'm going to be mashing it. If you were pressing a button, that's your fault. That's not my fault. Like that's just an easy win for me, you know. So exactly, yeah.
yeah,
Marvel does introduce a very different dynamic that other fighting games don't. I'm not saying that other fighting games don't introduce, but it really
yeah,
hone in on, which is that it is not very fair, and there's a lot of variables that you cannot control. It's just
yeah,
that you can only control the best that you can.
yeah, exactly, man. Like,
Yeah.
so we were talking about the like the end or the Marvel Infinite, and then COVID hitting and all that stuff. Um, like the other thing that I had mentioned earlier, like when I think of you is like the commentating side. Like, what started that journey for you with that? Because obviously, like especially being around locals, like a lot of times it's just like, hey, can you commentate this or whatever, right? They want
Hmm.
whoever's around that's somewhat knowledgeable at the game, just to be there, talking head, whatever. You don't have to be James Chen and Ultra David, and it's just whatever. Like, hey, can you just sit here with so and so, and just like take up
I'm
the
feeling
space here and
attacked
like
right now.
and compensate with them.
I've totally
you
done
know
that
what
for
I'm
Nom.
saying?
Yeah. You know what's very funny that you mentioned those two names? Um, my desire and even dream to commentate actually started long ago, very, very long ago. And I saw Wednesday Night Fights, Ultra, David, and James Chen teamed up to commentate, and I said, "Wow, what a beautiful pair." One is like on a very analytical side, and now that I mention it, I study commentators a lot actually. And I said that commentators are so cool because it's like they're storytelling in a way. They're storytelling, but at the same time, they're making it even more entertaining for the spectators at home while still having their own either niche or their own personality put into it. So when I saw those two, which is the Ultra Chen, if
Yeah,
you may, oh, James Chen has a very strong way of explaining things and breaking down things at a very fundamental and basic manner. You could have just like tuned in for the very first time for fighting games, and he can explain it to you, and you would understand it. And at the same time, he would have this very like dad jokes or like very like
Yeah.
punny and stuff like that. It's just like silly. It's not very serious. So then you have Ultra David, and Ultra David is like on the super analytical side, and he has this dry humor and this like deadpan kind of way on explaining things. He's actually very funny,
yeah,
but it just kind of depends. Like humor is subjective. For me, I think Ultra David is pretty funny.
I think he
Um,
is too, yeah. I think both of them are really funny, honestly.
yeah. So actually, when you listen to my commentary, I think it is a fusion of Ultra Chen in a way,
Yeah.
and that I think ultimately, I think I have a lot of dry humor, but I'm very analytical. And sometimes I do break out the play-by-play manner of like, okay, I think that now is a good time to talk about mechanics or breaking down something that beginners might not understand.
yeah.
So Ultra Chen is a very big influence on me growing up as a commentator. So I would actually like listen to them. I would like study them back in whatever Wednesday Night Fights was, at the Proud Bird, or this is like
The
2012 or
Proud
something
Bird.
like.
Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
I
gonna
haven't
I'm
thought
gonna
about
start naming off
that
some
in a
really
while.
old names. Yeah, this is really long ago. So my
Yeah.
desire as a commentator had started long, long since then, and I actually would then get a taste of commentating for the very first time at Devastation 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now this is a great tournament. This tournament, I was on the mic for 6 hours.
Really?
Yeah, like 4 to 6 hours. I want to say around the 4 to 6 hours. The tournament overall lasted for like 6 hours. I want to say. Now this is for like 20 plus people, so you have no excuse to be running for like 6 hours. But as we know, we're locals. Devastation happened to be a very not very organized tournament. So I was on the mic with this. Someone said, "Who wants to commentate?" And my friend's like, "Hey, you said you wanted to commentate, right? Like now's your chance." I'm like, "Yeah, like let's do it. Hop on the commentary. Hop on with this other random guy. I don't know who this guy is, and it was for Blaze Blue, Continuum Shift, I want to say. So I hop in with this guy, and I'm trying to do my best to learn and do the play-by-play or the analysis or the color, and it's just this is my first time, and like my brain exploding. I'm trying to do my best, and this guy is like yelling in my ear saying, "That was so brilliant! That combo is brilliant! That play was brilliant! This guy is so brilliant!" And I said, "Why is he yelling brilliant every other second? I don't understand." So that was my introduction to commentary. But as the years go on, I would then join the Hasbats, and that would be my opportunity to be able to practice commentary. So I would have the Hasbats, and then I would have the Spiral Series Entertainment.
Oh
That
yeah,
would
we haven't
be
talked about that era yet.
Yeah, that would be the post Hasbats era where John and T Dot would run tournaments at UAT, and then they would later transition to um, the gaming zone. And so I had plenty of local practice. I had a lot of local practice, but I felt like even then, at the time, I was the only person who was serious about commentary in the local scene. And I don't mean any disrespect to any of the local players, but I felt like commentary was just something to do when players had downtime or they were
Yep.
knocked out,
Yeah.
eliminated.
If I could interject here, is like so I had my whole spiel at the beginning of this episode about Team Hazmat, right? And about how they basically took streaming, which was greenfield at the time for Arizona, and said let's put Arizona up front and center, and let's buy into the streaming thing, and then just go ham on it and be a leader at it in the nation, really, because it was what New York and California, and then us, really, in Texas.
Yeah.
And that was all thanks to Team Hazmat. So what that ended up doing is, like, for all of us players, like, and this is 2011 or so, that was like, what is this thing? It's a microphone. I'm just gonna spit some words into the mic. There were no standards at the time of like what is acceptable for a fighting game stream. There wasn't even any standards for the time for what is acceptable for an internet stream. Like, people were still figuring that shit out. And so Hasm would host once a week and then have a tournament once a week, and then he would just provide a platform, and Nam was front and center every time doing commentary on it. All that to say, he was doing commentary on it because he got eliminated from the tournaments early.
I was actually gonna say that. Yeah, during the Has days, I definitely was not making like finals or like top four or anything like that. So that's very funny that you said that. I was literally gonna say, dang, the only reason I got to commentate at Has was because I wasn't making like finals or anything like that.
Yeah.
Thankfully you said that. No, that's very
Yeah.
funny.
I mean, we just got done talking about how you get top 8 at majors, and that desire to break into top 8 at majors. If only I could be a national level player. And I had to knock you down a couple things.
Thank you. What I will say is that yeah, I'm still very grateful, by the way. I just want to say that I'm very grateful to everyone who's streamed, even Hasm, who's was the one who spearheaded the streaming for Arizona, and then after Hasm would be you, and even just for Marvel itself, Armando was a very Angelic, I would say,
Oh,
was a
yeah.
very known player. So even just his casual streams would garner a lot of player or a lot of spectators that
Yep.
just wanted to just watch stuff, and he would say, "Hey, we're gonna play a set. Do you want to hop on commentary while you're not playing?" And I said, "Sure." So
Yeah.
everyone had helped me come to give me exposure to commentary, and I took it semi seriously. I want to say, because I don't want to take it too seriously. If I'm like at somebody's house, I'm like, blah blah blah. I've got people in the back, talking shit or whatever it is. I want to be able to keep it casual. I want to keep it balanced to be able to be um, to learn, but at the same time be casual. And then I would have more opportunities later on when I started traveling more. I started traveling to Vegas, the sister scenes. Then I would start traveling to the East Coast, and you know, I would start trying to commentate these smaller not events, but like side tournaments.
Yeah.
I would try to commentate side tournaments and stuff like that. And then I
Yeah.
didn't really get to commentate majors until later on. But the thing is that it's very difficult actually. And I just wanted to say that to become a commentator, to becoming a strong and known commentator is actually very difficult.
Yeah.
It's not something that you just grind and just play casuals. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the thing is that what people don't realize is that commentating is at the end of the day a social aspect, and that you have to be able to understand the social aspect and then add it onto the game, and that you have to be able to communicate with your partner, and you have to learn where you stand as a style of a commentator. And there's just I could literally like just keep going on what you need to do as a commentator.
Yeah.
The play by play, the analysis, the color, the combination of either. Like it's a lot. It's a lot. And to come up as a commentator has been very difficult if you don't live in a big city. And
Oh,
John had mentioned this. LA, that's Wednesday Night Fights and Super Arcade. When Next Level, New York. That's all those guys like Yipes, Lee Chung, Persia. Those are the two big ones. Now,
Yeah.
if you had to name me a big commentator outside of those two, you would be very hard pressed to find a commentator that doesn't come from that scene.
Those
yeah.
scenes, yeah.
You'd
Very
you'd
hard
be
pressed.
you'd probably end up going to UK or Japan, right? At that
Yeah,
point, you'd leave the
exactly. Yeah,
country.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you'd have
That's
to
what
leave the country.
yeah, that's actually
Yeah.
who I think of because you think of like F word and like Logan, like that would be like, oh, I think of those guys, something like that.
Right. And I'm sure even they come from some sort of concentrated scene, wherever they are from. But for America, it's actually very difficult back then to really push yourself as a commentator. But nowadays it's different. Commentary nowadays is different because of the COVID era, because there's online tournaments happening all the time. So being able to put yourself out there has been a little bit easier
Yeah,
than it is because Wednesday Night Fights and um, Next Level doesn't quite hold a monopoly over commentators because now it's online, so people can kind of
Yep.
be able to apply to commentary online. Like shout outs to Flexus. Alexis has been able to make a name of herself now as an Arizona commentator, being able to network with online tournaments. But for a very long time, I feel like I was the only qualified commentator of Arizona. And I'm tooting my own horn, by the way.
yeah,
I'm just tooting my own horn because I have a lot under my belt, being able to commentate Red Bull,
yeah,
CEO, Evo, CEO Taku, Combo Breaker, undefeated. What
yeah.
name the tournament. Like I've commentated at these events, so I've had a lot of experience.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, in terms of like the traveling, you said, networking is big too. I think that's probably a big thing with that. Um, and it's just like, yeah, I feel like in a lot of ways, like you almost have to have like, it's more like people that kind of thing, right? Because it's
Hmm.
just like,
Yeah.
especially now with things being more established and people wanting to put on a good show, right? Before it'd be like, let's just throw whoever's here on commentary, right? Now it's like I want, a good pairing of people. And that, that's a thing too. Like, right. You gotta, whatever your style is, like, you don't want to put two people that are like yipes together necessarily that are, gonna clash. Like, a lot
Yep.
of times, like, I watch sports and stuff, and it's like you have the color commentary guy that's like the yipes, and then you have like the analytical guy that's like doing the play by play or that knows about the upcoming mix up or setup that's coming, or the frame data, those kind of things that maybe that color guy doesn't know as much, but he points those kind of things out, and it's just like it's all about kind of like finding your style and finding people you're compatible with, and like your chemistry, those kind of things.
I think another huge aspect about commentary that like, okay, let's be real, right? Like, people are like Benny, like what you mentioned, like, what if you put two Yipeses together, right? Where
Yeah.
it's really easy to comment on the internet and be like, these commentators fucking suck.
Yeah.
They don't play off each other, they talk over each other, all the other stuff, right? And I think the battle as a commentator is oftentimes about figuring out, like Nam, you just said it on this episode, which is like, you have to figure out, it's a dance partner, you have to figure out how they talk, like what their style is, and then work around that. Even like during our interview right now, like I can tell you're watching for like when Benny and I are about to launch into a story, and then you're waiting for us to finish, and then like you have your commentary chops on right now, right? So so like, but the kicker is that you have to work with a company to do this. And so it's not as simple as being good at the video game anymore. And so I think what a lot of viewers do is they say, well, this commentator isn't good by my standards or whatever, and so therefore they're not good. And you can that can apply to a fighting game, be like, hey, they're losing the video game, therefore, they're not good. But you can't infer that with a commentator. And so what the commentator's burden then is basically it's to carry the unfair expectations. It's also to present the game to the viewer, which is something that we didn't have before the pandemic. The pandemic created this situation where everybody had to play games, and your commentary track was, I'm going to talk at this character on the video game screen with a CFN name on it, or a video like a gamer tag on it, and there's no player cam anymore. There's no human to human interaction, and so what ends up happening is the only human interaction is the commentator, and so the commentator becomes the window, and that becomes there's all this extra pressure that comes with being commentator, and it's not as simple as being good at the video game.
Yeah, I actually, very interesting that you mentioned that. I want to add that um, the human interaction is very important, and that you said I have the commentary chops on. It's very funny because commentators has this thing, and Stage Am loves to do this too. He'll say this. He'll say like, anytime he's talking, or let's say like I'm talking, and if somebody starts talking at the same time, I shut up. And that's because you don't want to talk over the other commentator. You don't want to talk over your partner,
Right.
right? So there's that mentality or the habit of being able to understand that you're in a conversation, and in a sense, it's a lot like fighting games. You have your turn, and then you have your opponent have your turn, and then you guys have this dance, like you said, this back and forth dance, and then better
Or I
yet,
could interrupt you right now, and it sounds really awkward, right? Oh, you waited for me. Oh, you got the commentary chops on.
you didn't have to expose me like that.
That's good. That's good. That's a good look, man.
Yeah. John just EXTP'd right there. He's like, I'm taking my turn.
Yeah, and then,
I'm taking my turn. Yeah.
That's why. See, that's another thing that I was gonna mention, is that one of those things in commentary that people don't understand is that, again, it's a lot like fighting games, where you take turns, and then sometimes you extend your turn. Sometimes you try to not steal the turn, but sometimes you extend the turn and keep it going. All right, and it's up to your partner to understand that, oh, he's gonna keep going. Let him keep going.
Or
And then
I could fall for the
sometimes,
frame trap and just talk over you like that, right?
and then you could just steal your turn back because something hype happens. Something
Yeah.
hype happens, and maybe you're the one that's just like, oh my god, you just blow up, and then I just shut up because
Yeah.
it calls for it.
Yeah.
The problem is that you can't lab that.
Yeah.
You can't just go to training room and lab that because it's social skills. And I'm not here to talk crap about, people, but social skills is much harder to master
Yeah. Exactly.
when it comes to these kind of things. and that's why commentary has been very difficult for a lot of players, or just just a scene to you know grow a commentator in general, because it's not easy.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna sit here and say it's very easy. It's actually kind of difficult.
No, I mean
exactly.
it's the like so to grow a player in Arizona, right? What does it take? It takes a setup and it takes a dedicated player, obviously, but then also maybe you have a tournament series, and then that player gradually grows throughout that tournament series. But for a commentator, you got to have all the equipment that comes with it. You got to have a platform. You got to have the stream. You got to have like the vehicle for the commentator to succeed. The vehicle for a commentator to succeed is significantly uh, more specific, I think, compared to a player. And I think that people mesh those two together too often because the commentators have this like minds, or they have this like aura of being like, oh yeah, I'm part of the FGC. I'm just another player like you. I'm a dude explaining the game to you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, no, there's definitely people
Unfair.
that are good at it, or it's like you said, like in terms of like you got to get used to the partner, or like when it's your turn. I mean, that's something that me and John have been doing with the podcast, right? When we first started, it was kind of like, when do I talk, when do you talk, and then as we're doing this more, like we get a better idea of each other's kind of flow, and like when you like it said, it's time for somebody to let that person overextend, like like in commentary, like a lot of times, like James Chen, for example, like he'll start talking about history or like a story or some kind of situation with that player, and like a lot of times I will hear that other person just kind of shut up and let him talk. Right? There's no
Hmm.
interjection. There's no, oh yeah, this and this. No, it's his time to kind of explain, whatever the situation is or whatever the backstory is behind this player.
Yep.
Um, I guess in terms of like, this is something that I kind of just thought of on the spot, was like I thought of like these questions to ask you, just in general.
Sure.
Um so in terms of commentary, like, do you have a, I guess I don't know, it came up because I was listening to this podcast and they were like, all right, it's lightning round time, right? And it was just like people just shooting up questions, right? So I just thought of that right now, or
All
like
right, here
10
we go.
minutes
Pop
ago.
quiz.
Pop
Yeah,
quiz for
so
Nam. Let's do it.
in terms of like, do you have a favorite match that you've commentated personally?
Oh, good question. I have one in mind, and then I have another in mind as well. One of them is a personal favorite, and his name is Olympic. If you don't know who this person is, it means you're not in the Marvel scene. That's all it is. He's just mostly in the Marvel scene. Olympic Karsten is a good friend of mine. He lives in Tampa, Florida, and him and I go off of each other very well. And it's just maybe it's just personal. We're just good friends. He's very colorful, and he knows how to create the hype, but not too overbearing. Whereas he creates the color and I provide the analytical. So together we make a very good pair. But he doesn't really travel very much, so it doesn't really so people don't really see us together very often. The second pick would then be for me. This is just from recent events. Persia, and everyone knows Persia, right? So Persia is a very play-by-play and very colorful commentary, and she has an ability to just be able to like shoot the energy up, and she's very good at that. And I'm I'm very capable of being able to complement that, and she'll talk about how that play was so good, like that play was hype and it worked. And then I can follow up and say that play was so good because of this, because of this matchup, because of the way the player was thinking, whatever it is. We complement each other very well because of the play by play and the analytical. Um, and I spent like 4 hours with her at CEO 2019, or I'm sorry, 2021 in December, and we spent like 4 hours, and people came up to us and were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you guys were so good." And I sat there and I was like, "I can't believe I sat there for 4 hours and didn't go to the restroom." But I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it nonetheless. And I had a lot of pride in that tournament, and it was really good to be able to commentate an event post COVID, because I felt like, I don't know, I felt like we needed it. I felt like the community has been wanting for something for so long, and we were able to come back to normalcy
Yeah,
in a
I
way.
mean it's as
So
normal as it can be. Yeah,
there's a lot to unpack with that answer, though. Is like, usually when you hear a commentator talk about their favorite match, right? Like in a public forum or something, they'll be like, "Yeah, like it's because of the goings on of this match." But it's
yeah,
interesting to me that your answers are, "This is my favorite match to commentate because of my dance partner,"
yeah.
and it's hammering home this analogy. And I'm just gonna, the analogy is like the dance partner, like your partner is your dance partner is your partner. Like your commentator is your dance partner. Well, that's straightforward. But it's almost as if the match that you're commentating on is the song that you're dancing to, and that it's a static thing. It's there, but what really makes it magical is your partner and what you and your partner do together with it to complement it, so to speak.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I
yeah,
thought that was a surprising answer to hear too, for you to mention like who you were commentating with. I was expecting, oh, I commentated Combo Fiend versus blah blah blah, and this happened, and I was part of this, right?
yeah.
So yeah,
Oh
I
wait,
think
did you?
that's
I'm sorry. Did I misunderstand your question? Did you
no, no,
say
no, no. That's perfectly fine because it's like it like I mean interpreted it differently than what I would expected you to say.
okay?
But I think that's that's a reflection of you, and I think that's actually really cool because like I don't think a lot of people would say that, right? Like, oh, I commented Alex Faye versus John Choi in the revival match, right? Like you didn't think about that. You thought of the people that you were working with and how you had chemistry with them, which I think is actually really cool. So
Okay. Wow, I misinterpreted. My bad.
no, no, no. It's cool. I think I respect it though. Like I think that's like I said. I think that speaks to you and like like you said, the networking and the friendships, the outgoing personality that you have, and the fact that you would think of that person that you were working with, your dance partner, so to say, like John said. Like I think that's pretty cool.
I think we often get like the PR speak with commentators, which is like it's not about me, it's about the person, right? It's about like I had that happen with a doctor once where I was like, "Hey doctor, you saved my life," and he's like, "It wasn't me who saved your life, it was you. You worked really hard." And in reality, it's it's like the commentator,
Yeah,
like they have like you have a different view of the way the match plays out and the way the
yeah,
production is, and it's really easy to play the humble card and
yeah,
be like, yeah, it's all about the players, but in reality, it's about how you present it too, right?
yeah, yeah. So next question I had: who is someone that you have not commentated with that you would like to commentate?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Um, there's a lot of people that come to mind. A lot of people that I also look up to and study come to mind. I want to say I think two people come to mind right away. Actually, three. Is it okay if I say three? Damn
All
it.
right, yeah, yeah. Just give me a reason.
Um, First of them is Sajam
Okay.
because I feel like I want to say not our styles, but in a way, a lot of our yeah, I guess styles does blend a lot, and it's analytical. Both Sajam and I are super analytical, and we have this sarcasm that I love doing, and he
Yeah,
also likes doing too. So, and I think he studied commentary to a degree that is very admirable. I think
yeah,
the way he's shot up through the ranks has been very good, and I think commentating with him has will be very good too. The other is Saint Cola, and I think Saint Cola.
okay,
I've known Saint Cola for a long time, and actually I've known Saint Cola before he was a commentator. Saint Cola was actually a writer, and he was writing articles for fighting games before he moved to SoCal and would be able to get in touch with the Wednesday Night Fight crew. And, when you get to network with a big crew, then, you make it kind of. So, but I'm not trying to say anything about, St. Cola. I think that he's a genuinely very colorful commentator and he brings the energy. And I think that him and I would pair very well together, actually. And him and I knew, because he was writing for about like Marvel Infinite and stuff like that, so we knew each other before he became big through the whole Street Fighter 5 stuff. And I
yeah.
think that would be a very good thing. This other one, the third one, is just literally a dream that will never happen. Seth Killian is
Oh,
actually Yeah. Seth Gillian is a commentator that I admire a lot. And I don't know what it is about him. He's very elegant. He's very eloquent about his words. The way he introduces hype isn't too primal, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
The way Seth Killian talks is just so like it's so beautiful. And
Academic, philosophical.
he
Yeah.
he is a philosophy professor, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a philosophy professor for college.
Okay.
So the way he like, he actually dropped out of all of that to become, Capcom's PR or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Interesting, but
now he's in a game developer, right? I think he works for Sony Santa Monica. I think.
that was the last time I heard of him. That was like years ago.
Yeah.
But Seth Killian was the third person because I am a fully fanboy and I admire the way he commentates a lot. Seth Killian would be my third, but very not probable pick because he just he
Yeah,
doesn't
he's
appear
not in
very.
the scene. Yeah, he like. I mean, yeah. The thing I remember with him is like, I talked about this on a previous podcast, but in terms of like the Evo 2010, like when he was paired up with Adam Sessler, like he
Yeah.
had he had to carry that that duo for sure because like you had Adam Sessler who wasn't trained in the
Five hit
scene.
combo.
Actually, that's a really good segue into this exercise or game that I wanted to play with you, Nam. Is
Mhm.
what I want to do here is I'm going to present to you a commentator that reaches a certain stereotype, whether good or bad, and I want to hear how you would react to it. Like, what would your internal monologue be while you're on stream? Okay.
Okay. Oh, wait, hold on. When you say on stream, am I commentating with this person or am I just listening to this person?
You are commentating with this person. So
Oh, even
how would
better.
you work around this wall?
Ooh.
So,
Go ahead.
all right. So, use case 1. I am a player. I don't really know anything about the game, but I think I do. How do you react to that? What's your strategy approaching that?
This has actually happened to me before, and I set myself up for this on purpose. Um, Red Bull 2018. Um, we had a lack of commentators because, sure enough, this was for Street Fighter. Sure enough, all the commentators that were doing commentating for Street Fighter were just players, and so you bring Red Bull, no one was commentating. I needed an actual dedicated commentator, and I would bring in a buddy of mine who I would reconnect. His name is David, mail order. Um,
Ah, yes.
he just understood the basics of the game. He didn't understand anything else about the game, but I knew that he was a great socialist. He could socialize and he could be able to communicate and talk and have discussions.
Totally.
So I would teach him and prepare him for the game, and then we would go into Red Bull. And so he would then be I actually explained you can be the Inquisitor and you could talk about play by play stuff that you understand the way you see. So if you're a player and you just play the game but you don't truly understand the game, I would I would lead you into a play by play and talk about the play by play and say like, oh, this and that, he did this, he did that. And then after we established what had happened there, I would then explain and analyze either A, why it happened, B, like what the players were thinking at the time, and or C, like the overall impact of what happened and where we are now because of why it happened.
Okay, so you would basically take me as somebody who's inexperienced with the game and just wants to say some stuff. You would say, like, let's isolate John to just talk about, or mail order in this case, to talk about the play by play, a very specific thing that he sees on screen, and from there you're going to augment the surround of it and be like, okay, here's why this happened. Okay, so I think that makes sense. That's a good route too, because then the other guy just has to just literally just explain what's on screen, and you kind of cover everything else. Everything
don't-
else.
Not to-
If something hype happens, you'll be like, "Oh my god, that was so cool! He hit him with this mix-up," and then I'm like, "Yeah, that was a cool mix-up. It happened because of XYZ," and that's how you need to be able to lead it's in a sense like it's a dance, right? You need to be
Yeah.
able to lead them because
Yeah,
of
you're
like
make-
you took the step, and let me show you why it happened. Let me
yeah,
show
or
you
you're
why
making
we're
up
walking there.
you're making up for his weaknesses per se, like right, like you're not allowing him to kind of overstep his bounds and kind of talk nonsense, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay, so this next scenario, I am a player that jumped on the mic with you, Nom, and I I know a lot about the game. I'm not good at explaining it. I'm not good at explaining it. And let's fuck it. I'm drunk and I'm not good at explaining it, and I'm just yelling things into the mic, and I'm trying to get hype because bop bop bop. That looks so powerful. Look at that combo. Oh my god, that's 18 hit combo. I'm just going ham, just going off the rails and not stop talking. What do you do?
Okay, this is a harder situation. Um, what I have to do is I have to be able to understand where you're gonna stop, and the hardest part is, like you said, you're not gonna stop.
Right.
So I have to be able to let you go for a little bit. So you have to. So for this has happened a lot because there's a lot of people who love talking.
Sure.
So I have to be able to let them talk for at least a little bit. I have to let them talk for a little bit, and then I say, I have to segue into it. And this is where segueing is so important. And that's why the meme comes from like Sage M segues, or like I
Yeah,
do a lot of segues too.
Yeah.
And then I'll interrupt and I'll say, "Oh, you just said that? Very interesting that you mentioned that because blah 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 blah." And I have to keep it short because and I have to keep it very short because I don't know when they're gonna interrupt again. So that's the problem is that a lot of other inexperienced commentators love to interrupt
Sure.
because they'll see something on the screen and they cannot control themselves. They'll be like, "Oh my god, he just did a left right mix up." I'm like, "Bro, that was on his wake up. Of course he was going to do a left right mix up. Like what else were you going to expect?" You don't have to you don't have to say everything that's happening on the screen. It's not that important. But some people are like that.
yeah,
So I have to be like, "Hey, that's really cool that you mentioned that because here's this. He had this amount of meter, he had this amount of resource. He did this because of, because of what he had. And then he conditioned that because of blah blah blah. And that's why that makes up work. That's hype, right?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, that's super hype, blah blah blah." And he keeps skip and they'll keep going or whatever it is, right? So I have to be able to if I can't control this person,
You direct it.
then I'll direct him as best as I can
Yeah.
because a lot of these people again, if I can't get them to stop talking, I'll just I'll just interject and they'll be the primary. And but here's the other issue is being able to establish your presence. And this is something very big that I've learned studying other commentators. And actually I've watched other commentators study themselves. Isn't that crazy? I've watched a video of Ultra David analyzing his own commentary. And
Yeah.
he said this. He said, "I want to be able to establish um, these hype moments, these ender moments." So
Ender.
you'll realize like there will be like round enders
Mm-hmm.
where someone will do something hype. And he wants to be able to be the one who establishes the dominance and say, gets hype, says the whole color commentary, like raises his tone or whatever it is. You want to be able to establish that presence as well. So you need to be able to fight for it a little bit. So whatever I just said, being able to direct it, you also need to be able to establish your dominance if they're not respecting you. It's like fighting games.
So are we saying like, let's say like Nom, I'm commentating your match and you did like an award winning like a game winning combo, and I was like, and with that, Nom advances to grand finals with a quick 2-0, like that kind of stuff, right? Like, are we talking? Is that what the dominance that he's establishing is, or what
No,
kind?
it's
What's
not.
another example of that?
For example, it would be like Kawano just did a frame trap to actually seal out the round right there. It would be something like you are the one who is explaining the
yeah,
round ending sequence. It is not like a, whatever it is, or they said, and he used up all his meter to close out the round or
Sure,
stuff
yeah.
like that. It is not like a game ender thing. It is like a something happen at the very end, and you want to be the one who explains it rather than
Oh,
um yeah, go ahead.
so I'm looking at this in terms of Ultra David made an instructional video of him going after commentary, talking about commentary, right? So
Yeah.
doesn't that create a conflict, if anything? Because it says, all right, you want to be the commentator that pops off at the end, and then if you aren't both commentators with the desire to do that, aren't they just going to talk over each other?
Right. That you're not wrong, but establishing dominance means that you're communicating with them not directly. Does that make sense? It's like you have to be able to start that early. You need to understand where your commentator is to be able to do that. And if they are interjecting over you all the time, you need
Yeah,
to make sure that you stand your ground. It's like in fighting games where people are pushing you to the corner, you need to be able to stand your ground to show I'm not a pushover. You can't just keep walking forward at me and like pressuring me. I have this, you know,
yeah.
this understanding of I'm going to do this. You can't just keep talking over me. But if they're stubborn, then that's harder to work with. If they're
Yeah.
stubborn, then you just let it go.
I,
Then
I
you
was
can't
gonna
really
say,
do
like,
anything
doesn't
about it, right?
that just create a situation where you're just like both people are exerting their confidence over each other, their
Yes.
dominance
Yep.
over each other, and then that creates like a lesser product in a lot of ways, right? So eventually
Yeah.
someone has to seed, right?
Yeah.
Um,
hmm
Told you.
Yeah.
and
The thing
so
is, like, you have to at least establish it once. The thing is that if you never establish it, there will always talk over you.
got
That's
it,
what I'm trying to
got it.
say. Is that
Okay,
you want to be able to say, "I'm not a pushover. You can't just keep talking over me. I'm going to. I have my own turns. You need to respect my turn. And if they
so
do not
okay,
respect that turn, then just run with it. That's just how it is.
I
But
I'm
if
at
you can't,
odds with like the idea of like it being a conflict between the two commentators and not a team effort, but it does make sense in that you do have to establish that you are wanting to take at least half of the end game commentary or like the big pop off moments, right? It's you saying to your co-commentator, "Hey, I am going to pop off just as much as you are, and you need to make room for that." Right?
correct,
Okay.
because I've actually received feedback from commentators before.
Mhm.
Sure enough, Yipes. Not feedback. I actually have not received feedback from Yipes, but commentating with Yipes is very difficult. A lot harder than you would think it is because this guy is he exudes an aura and he's
Yeah.
just all in. If you're not able to find yourself in between those or even have a tug like a tug of war with him, then
Yeah.
it's going to be very hard to commentate with him.
Yeah.
Persia was another person who had given feedback like telling me like you need to be able to stand your ground and be able to um show off that you have the ability to take your turn
Yeah.
because if they don't know when you're gonna take the turn, they're gonna keep talking.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that's different from the scenario that you're talking about, John, which is that someone is just, drunk or, just
Sure.
talking nonstop. You have to be able to establish that to see if they can give and take. Because if they receive that,
Yeah.
energy from you, they'll be like, oh, this guy, he can he can fire back.
Yeah.
So why don't I be able to like have a give and take kind of relationship with him rather than I don't know when this guy's gonna talk, so I guess I'm gonna keep talking to fill out the dead air, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got a twofer with my question, basically. One for somebody who can't control themselves, and one for like how do you defend against somebody who is more aggressive, but knowingly so because they want to monopolize the mic, right? Or not like I don't want to make it like a negative thing. It's more like, hey,
Yeah.
like they're following what Ultra David taught them to do. Um,
Well, that's where the whole like you have to be able to stand your ground or at least test them. If you don't
Yeah.
know how these commentators work, you
yeah,
have to test them.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that's the whole like neutral, right? You play neutral in fighting games and you have this back and forth. And you go, is this player gonna react to this? Is this player more aggressive? Is this player more defensive? What is it? So you have this testing ground. And in commentary, that first hour or whatever it is, that's the testing ground for me.
Do you
So,
think that so like what you've done over over the course of this answer is explain like how the how commentary is similar to a fighting game, right? And do you think that that's by nature, or like that's the nature of commentary, or that's just the lens we're applying to it as fighting game players? Because all your co-commentators are fighting game players, and so we are just putting it in terms of fighting game. But do you think that like that's actually the way it is, or is it just more that we happen to all be fighting game players, so this is what works for us?
both, but a little bit more on here's the thing. So fighting games is a, what do we call it? Like a 1v1, like a social competitive game
Mm-hmm.
where when you play fighting games, you're right next to each other, right? Side by side. So, and then you have this discussion through the fight itself. And I know it sounds corny,
No,
and um I always have this philosophy that the way people play fighting games actually somewhat mirrors their personality. Super corny. Somewhat,
No, I
somewhat.
agree with
I'm
that.
not yeah,
I
I'm
agree.
not gonna say it's a one for one. I'm not gonna hear and say it's a one for one, but the way we play fighting games actually does mirror our personality. So when you actually think about that and use that as a way to approach commentary, and it's just the easiest way and for me to use analogies for fighting games, because I feel like, of course, we're all fighting game players. Therefore, I'm going to use a fighting game analogy to explain commentary. But, commentary is by itself social. And fighting games, if you're fighting through your personality, it
It's
is
expression.
also expression and social.
Yeah.
Just philosophy. I'm not going to sit here and say, like, it is how I explained it, and you have to take it how it is. It is just my philosophy of commentary and fighting games in general, which is that, you have to be able to walk your way through commentary, and not just commentary, fighting games, in a very social manner. I can name names and how I see the way that people play fighting games the way they are personality wise, but I think we would be here forever. So
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
I
sit here
that's a
yeah,
conversation for another time because
yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
because
Let,
the way you play, John, I'm
yeah,
very
I know,
quickly,
I
the
know.
way you play is super troubleshooting.
Yeah,
It's super programming style. Okay, it's like, did this work? Didn't work? Let's find another way. Did this work? Oh, it worked. Okay, guess I troubleshoot it. That's just how it is. That's how you are. In my experience. So I
totally.
feel
Yeah,
like,
no,
yeah.
I agree
Yeah.
with that. And to the point where it's
Yeah.
actually a drawback in my playstyle. But just to there's a story here I want to just inject real quick. Is that my I played it at Evo 2017, I think. I played against this Geef player. This Geef player was just fucking mashing all the time and just churning butter with just trying to guess SPD the whole time with Street Fighter Five, and he called it. He said, like, there were a couple times when I baited SPD, and he was like, my critical thinking is off, and I was like, that's a really good way to put that, critical thinking. And then I thought further, and like I talked to him further after that and learned a little bit more about him. He said, "Yeah, I'm a software engineer." And so there's a point where I was like,
No
"Oh, maybe
way.
I'm a troubleshooting kind of guy, playstyle wise, because I'm a software engineer." But then I played a grappler player who was also a software engineer, so I'm starting to like it almost feels like there's a part of personality where it's like people play for their personality, but they also play to be the opposite of their personality to get away from their profession,
It's
right?
it's like the
Yeah.
aggressive version of trial and error, because a lot of, I'm also, an engineer. I understand a little bit about, troubleshooting.
Yeah,
A lot of it is just like aggressive trial and error, which is like, it's like, instead of just using logic, just start throwing things, and whatever sticks sticks, because you have the health
yeah,
to, to be able to gamble with that.
yeah.
It's fine. If you get hit a few times, you get punished a few times, so what? Just keep SPDing. See what works.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
just me.
Did
I
you?
don't know.
So in the
Yeah.
interest of like I have one last we were talking about our game earlier, right? About as far as like let me throw commentator personas at you. I have one last one before I'm done with our game here, which
Yeah.
is here's a commentator that they match you, like they mirror you. They're an analytical commentator. They are not color in any way, shape, or form. They're more about just breaking down the numbers, breaking down the frame data, being a troubleshooter, so to speak. How do you work around that as a commentator?
I move away from that.
You move
It's very
away.
simple. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So you
I
just.
I've actually been practicing to be as flexible as I can because I didn't
Yeah.
want to be just an analytical because I
Yeah.
realized that if that's just me, I'd be very dry to a lot of spectators.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think my play-by-play is very easy for me, but I don't know. I don't really consider play-by-play as one of my stronger suits, or maybe it is, but it's not very exciting. I actually work on my color skills, which is being able to come up with humorous ways to um, keep the commentary going. And actually, I have done this before because
Yeah.
I have commentated. Okay, well,
With
besides
me.
you, obviously, yes.
Yeah.
Besides you, I've commentated with you. I've commentated with this other person for Marvel. He's a data analyst. He's like completely analytical because just like 90%. And he told me it was like, I know how we are. We're both analytical, but I don't know how we're going to like mesh. And I'm like, it's fine. I'm flexible. I can keep it
Yeah.
colorful. It's fine. And so
Yeah.
within the first 30 minutes to an hour, it was a little rough because we were still adjusting, but then after that, we were fine. Actually, we were completely fine because um I don't know how to say this. Like I've been influenced. I'm a product of my environment, and
Yeah.
as a player of a Marvel community, we're very colorful and
Yeah.
we love to, talk smack about each other. We
Yeah.
love to just do whatever it is, and I've been able to. I've been very blessed to be able to rubbed off of very, strong personality players, and I don't have to name any names. It's just the community in general.
Yeah.
It's not.
So
It's not just me. Yeah.
yeah. So I still have a few questions, but so basically, you're to for your answer to John's question. So instead of you, also trying to force being analytical, you're basically saying like so at that point you would kind of concede that and then just you would take over the color commentary role instead, right?
Hmm.
Exactly. So yeah, so no, that's almost it almost kind of in a way like mirrors your previous answer because you were like, I'm working around whatever that other person's weaknesses are, right? Or I'm, whatever is complementary or whatever will give the whatever will have the best chemistry with that particular person. Because like yeah, because I'm kind of like that too. Like I'm not the most analytical person. I could do like a play by play kind of thing. I'm more of like the color commentary guy. So it's just like yeah, like I'm probably better paired up with somebody that knows the games, the insides of the games and the setups, the frame traps, that kind of thing. Because for me, like that's not really my strong suit at all. So yeah, it's definitely I think it's a testament to your skills as a commentator to to be able to kind of work around the people that and around their weaknesses per se.
It's the
I
wall. We walk
Yeah,
around the wall,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You
yeah.
don't want to have to break through the wall. You want to be able to walk
Yeah,
around it,
Yeah.
right?
That's a good look,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, like I said, I have a few other questions before we kind of wrap things up here.
Sure.
So what's your dream commentary gig?
Oh, dream commentary gig. I think this is actually. I'm gonna go for the low hanging fruit.
Okay,
Top 8 Evo Finals. Is
any
that one?
That's
particular
low
game?
hanging fruit as a commentator.
Hey, hey,
I mean,
I respect it. I respect it. What any particular game or just any like just give me the top eight at Evo?
if it was a Marvel game, I'd be very happy.
Yeah,
The ones after that, I think Guilty Gear. I've done Guilty Gear commentary, by the way. I've done Guilty Gear
yeah,
commentary. Marvel, Street Fighter, Persona. I've done a lot of whole bunch of commentaries, but if it was like like a Marvel commentary on top 8 finals at Evo, my dreams
be
were
the
fulfilled.
that'd be
And
the one.
if there had to be a replacement, Project L.
Oh, okay,
This
nice.
is just
Well,
talking about the future. If Marvel versus series did not happen, then it would have to be Project L.
okay, okay, okay. So you kind of talked about this earlier in terms of like things with, uh, I guess ways to be a commentator. What would be your words of advice for someone that's wanting to get into commentating?
My words of advice are, first of all, and this is general for just even people getting into FGC, do not be afraid, and you need to be able to, you know, put yourself out there. You actually have to be able to put yourself out there, network and talk to people. Be like, hey, I'm interested in commentating. I may not be the best, and it starts local. It really does.
Yeah,
It actually all starts local. Just be able to say like, I want to become a better commentator, and just express that. That would
yeah,
be the very first thing. The second thing really would be to learn who you are as an individual, and then um, work your way from there. Because I never needed any type of tips for any type of, like, I needed to explain it analytically because that's how I think as a person. So
mhm,
your personality might be different. You might be able to crack jokes at, like, on, like, just easily, or you might be able to be like explain and have a very long-winded play-by-play. Like, everyone is different. You are who you are as a person. Understand that, and then work on your weaknesses, and then work on building your own brand from there. And I say that it sounds simple. It's not. It's not at all. But don't give up. The thing is that you need to keep going at it. And the best way is to just keep practicing. If you do not have any local scene, crap. Practice practice it on online. Like, watch a VOD, mute it, just start
yeah,
commentating.
yeah,
Do whatever it is you have to do. If you really want it, you can get it.
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It doesn't even need to be a VOD. You could be watching a stream and like, kind of
Yeah.
if rehost or whatever, or just say, "Hey, I'm going to run this stream and we're going to watch this. I watch this stream with you guys, and I'm going to do the commentary or something like that." You could do some kind of exercise like that.
I actually
But
commentate in my head. I actually watch streams and I commentate in my head. It's very funny because a lot of times I'll coincide with a lot of other commentators that are commentating at the time. I don't need to
Mhm.
mute it. I can just kind of think about it in my head and be like, this person's doing this, blah blah blah, and then I'll be like, oh, they just mirrored what I said. Well, I must be onto something.
Yeah,
And then someone will say something, and I'll be like, oh, that's very interesting. I didn't think about it like that way, or I didn't know I could express this moment of fighting games the way they expressed it. I will add it into my notes.
yeah.
So
I also like
yeah,
your general advice in terms of just speaking up. Like I feel that that's something that a lot of new people in the community don't do. Like whether that's coming into the venue and wanting to play casuals but not knowing what to say, and it's just like it's just a matter of like, hey, can I get next? There's people that just won't say anything, and like I walk up and I'm just like, do you have next? And they're like, no, I didn't know who had next. It's like, well, why didn't you say something? Like, and it's just like, I mean, I guess I understand it can be intimidating for some people, but it's a real simple thing to say, like, just speak up. Like, nobody's gonna know what your intentions are unless you say something. So it's just like, hey, whoever's running this ran bet, I'd like to get on commentary if that's okay. Can I run, do some of the losers matches or something? Like, I don't want to do like the top eight because I'm not experienced or whatever, but can I get in and do some things here and there?
I actually
So,
used to be like that. Yeah,
oh
for
yeah.
anyone who's listening right now, I used to be like you. I was very scared of asking for next in casuals. I
No,
was
I
very
wasn't scared. I'm talking about other people. Oh, you're talking
Yeah,
about
I'm
the
I'm talking
audience.
to the
Sorry.
people listening to this podcast. If there's anybody listening to me or heeding my, my words, I was like you. I was very scared of asking for next and casuals. I was very scared of asking to be on commentary. Just it's a leap of faith.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's just a leap of faith.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm like it almost seems like when you're I have a couple of friends who are trying to break into new industries as far as like professions go, like jobs. And so
Hmm.
oftentimes the name of the game is I just need somebody to take that one chance on me. I don't have that experience yet, but it's chicken or the egg. I'm not going to get that experience unless I get that job. So until I get that one opportunity, like Like it's a game about hunting that opportunity down.
Yeah.
And I will say, as and I'm sure Benny, you have this same experience too as a tournament organizer. Like when we're running tournaments and we're running streams, the commentary, at least for me, it wasn't at the top of my list of things that I was worried about. And I don't want to like trumpet that and be like I don't care about commentators, but more so like I was thinking about which matches are running and what stations they're running on, who
Yeah.
reported who's which loss, all other stuff, all the TO stuff, right? And so
Yeah.
what happens often is the TO is like, I just need somebody on commentary who's going to stick there, so I don't have to find another person, and you do
Yeah.
your best to find that person. And so,
Yeah.
at least locally, like Nam was my guy for that every tournament, assuming he wasn't in the tournament still, because oftentimes he was still in the tournament and he couldn't commentate. But
That's why we rotate.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So I got one more. Well, this is basically kind of like the close. So it's a two-part question. What does the future hold for Ninja Nam, whether that's commentating or playing? And then the second question: are you going to play Street Fighter 6?
Good question. Actually, was just watching Street Fighter 6 footage like literally like right before I came into this podcast. The first question. Okay, what's in the future? The future is that I am currently playing. Actually, I'm gonna admit this. I have not been playing fighting games at all very
Hey,
very recently.
that's us too, man.
Yeah, we admitted
Yeah,
that last
so
episode. So
I went pretty hard I'm sorry, Guilty Gear and King of Fighters. I made it out of pools for Guilty Gear.
congrats.
But
That's awesome.
for Evo, for
Yeah,
Evo.
for you.
Yeah.
But of course, commentary duty calls, and both of my out of pools for or my second pools for Guilty Gear and my pools for King of Fighters happened during the same time as me commentating at Marvel 3 at the sign tournament over
Oh
in
Oh, that's right.
no.
I remember you tweeted about that. Yeah, I remember seeing a tweet about that.
So
Yeah.
I made a very very hard call and I DQ'd myself out of both brackets.
Oh.
Yeah. So my future is at a very weird limbo where didn't I had conflicts, but it wasn't that bad. But this time it was really bad. And I really wanted to see how well I was going to do in both brackets. And I DQ'd myself out of both of them. So it was a little disappointing. Um
So you're in the middle
I
of making that choice of whether or not you want to be commentary or player.
This is the hardest
It's right
choice.
there.
Every commentator will come to this specific time and moment where they have to choose: are you a player or are you a commentator? At this moment, in my heart, I'm a player, but I enjoy commentating a lot, and I'm not sure how well I will be able to get rid of that. But um, it was Marvel 3. It was, it's a to me, Marvel 3 holds a very close place in my heart. And like John had asked me, are you a Marvel player at heart?
Yeah.
So I think that kind of answers that question a little bit. I did, DQ myself out of two brackets at the same time just to commentate Marvel 3. So
Yeah.
I think as a commentator, I will try to commentate as much brackets as possible. Will I be able to grow from that? I'm not sure. I'm dealing with some personal stuff that hinders my growth as a commentator. I know I do have the networking abilities to be able to commentate some of these online tournaments, so I can do that. That is a probable and possible route that I could go. I'm not sure where that's gonna go, but Guilty Gear is one of those tournaments that or one of those games that I've been commentating. I've commentated for DreamHack. I've commentated for CEO, Undefeated. So I've
Yeah.
commentated for events for Guilty Gear Strive now. So it's not like I'm new to it. So I
Yeah.
think that that is a possibility for me.
Yeah.
But as a player, I don't know where I'm at.
Yeah.
I'm
No, I
I'm
think.
learning I'm learning new hobbies. I'm
Yeah.
actually learning how to DJ. You
Oh,
know,
nice.
yeah. So that's been very fun for me. I just started practicing before I went on here. So this is
Yeah.
very
Nice.
fun for me.
I,
Just
I
to
think it's gonna be a real interesting time when Street Fighter 6 comes out because like T Dot said, motivation for competing is, it's probably low for a lot of people, right? Especially if you're not
Yeah.
traveling, if you're not going to Evo. Like for me, I was going to Evo every year since 2011, except like I skipped out 2013 because of work, but then I was going every year because I could, right? Then I stopped in 2017. I couldn't go to 2017 because they pushed into August school time here. My kids start school in July, right? So for me, like Evo was a big motivator to go see my friends. It was like the
Mhm.
big end game. Like that was like the end of my like fiscal year, right? It was just like go to Evo, see how I've progress through this game and how I do at a big at the biggest major in the world, right? And when that got taken away from me in a sense, like my motivation for playing really kind of just dwindled, right? But I still want to be involved in the scene, and as much as I'm looking forward to six, like I still don't know what that's gonna mean for me as a player. Like, am I gonna be as motivated? Am I gonna be as dedicated to wanting to be a really good player at that, or am I gonna kind of be content with like whatever time I can find for it, and whatever grand bats or tournaments I can find to play locally, and then because I mentioned a little bit in terms of like TOing stuff, like part of me just maybe just wants to hold events like maybe once a quarter or something and just do something for the community because I really enjoy that aspect, and maybe I just don't play as much as like I would have done in the past.
So yeah, this will lead into your second question. Um, and will I play Street Fighter 6? Think you heard from my origin stories that I am a Street Fighter player. That I started off as Street Fighter player competitively. So absolutely, I will play Street Fighter 6. I don't think there's any questions about it. The way that Capcom has been presenting themselves and the way that they carry themselves into developing this game shows a lot of love, and that's all I've been looking for. I just want I just want that Capcom to be able to take the game seriously, and the game has been looking very, very beautiful. And it's a good thing because I don't really have a lot of distractions for it. Because back then I had like a lot of other games. I had Persona, I had Marvel, and I identified as a Marvel player. There's no new Marvel player. I'm sorry, Marvel games at this point. Knock on wood. I don't know if they're gonna announce a Marvel 4 or a Marvel 5 or whatever it is. The thing is that um, I like playing new games. That's just that's just how it is. Even though I identify myself as a Marvel player, I want to play the new games. I want to play King of Fighters. I want to play Guilty Gear, all the new stuff because they're fun. I love fighting games. I don't care what it is. I'll play whatever it is. So Street Fighter, I will commentate that game. Trust me. At
Okay.
at these local events, I will commentate the game and I will come and beat someone's ass. All right. You will not be ready for me when I come for playing Kimberly or Jamie or whatever it is. Those are the two characters I'm looking at, by the way. Those characters have been
Okay.
they look very great, by the way. So,
Yeah.
absolutely, I'm gonna be playing
Okay.
Street Fighter. I'm gonna be coming back with my roots. This is
Okay.
where my
Okay.
roots
So,
are.
real quick question, just because I just thought about this now. How do you feel about the in-game the commentators in real life being put into Street Fighter Six? I know some people.
Oh.
I know some people. I know some people are looking at that and just like, oh yeah, this is gonna get old real quick. Oh, I'm just gonna turn it off. I don't need to listen to James Chen or Vicious or
Yep.
whoever in there talking all the whole time while I'm playing, right? So like, how do you feel about that?
So actually, very funny. People have like texted me and be like, "Oh my God, did you see the in-game commentary about for Street Fighter 6? That could be you." And I'm just like, look, like I appreciate the love, but like I'm not there yet, so I don't know if I'll ever be there. One day, maybe in
It's not your
2032.
time. It's not your
Yeah,
time.
I
respect.
get it.
Yeah, respect. Thank you for that. It's not my time, but actually, I think it's interesting. I think that it's just in a way they've already introduced that before, which is from the game Yadagarasu, if you know that game. Yadagarasu had introduced both the Ultra David and James Chen and Maximilian dude and stuff like that. I think it is a interesting way to keep the game interesting and to be able to integrate the FGC with the casual players who are just walking into it. They'll be like, "Huh, what's this? What's this feature?" Looks at it. Oh, commentators. Who is this? Vicious? Ultra David? Okay, sounds kind of corny. It sounds kind of interesting, but you know what? Like, I'll play it for a little bit. They don't even have to leave it on, right? And my guess is that no one's gonna leave it on. I think it's gonna get very old, especially for competitive players. But for some of the casual players, they're gonna be like, oh, they're saying some interesting things. Maybe I'll tune into the competitive scene and see where it goes. And they're gonna turn on Twitch and they're gonna see these commentators gonna be like, it's a very familiar um it's a very familiar sight and sound to behold. So I think it's not bad. It doesn't hurt. It just
Yeah.
doesn't hurt because you know what? You can just turn it off.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can just turn it off. And they even put in this like weird, crazy psycho like villain like Japanese commentator guy who's like a voice actor, but he's like a evil clown. I don't know who this guy is, but they put him in there. And I listened to it and I'm like, this guy sounds like an anime villain trope. Like just some dude out of just like some evil anime villain guy. But sure enough, it's interesting because this guy is laughing, he's being evil or whatever it is. So I think it's not a bad thing. I think it will get old for the competitive players, but I think it's a good thing for the casual players.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I just want to say, like, yeah, definitely appreciate having you on, Nam. Yeah. I mean, I know we met up, like you said, we met up for drinks. I don't know what, a month ago or something like that. Yeah. So I got to see you in person recently, and then John seen you recently too. He said, he ran into
Yeah,
you
he
too.
came to a party I had recently, a karaoke party.
Yeah.
It was fun.
This is a fun party, by the way.
We like pre-hashed out some of this episode and then ended up talking about something completely different. So it worked out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So like again, like yeah, we appreciate your time. So we'll be back next Thursday, same time, 5 p.m. on twitch.tv/spiral series when we go live. On YouTube, you can find the VODs at youtube.com/spiral series and Apple Podcasts under Absolute Guard. Our guest next week is going to be Neff. I'm typically the person that sorts out the guests, but this one was spearheaded by John here, who
Same
ran
deal.
into Neff recently. So
Yeah, I ran into her at a party. It's always at parties. It seems like we work out these guest things.
Your party.
Yeah.
well, there you go. Maybe that'll be the thing.
Yeah.
Come to my party and be like, "Hey, you want to come on a podcast?"
Pretty much.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, again, like it's been fun. We appreciate you taking the time. Been a great conversation. Like I learned a lot. Learned John's real name.
Yeah, I don't remember what his real name is.
Good.
I just remember
something Quan.
Yeah.
But no,
overall,
thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. You guys have been pretty good friends of mine for for John for over a decade now, and for you, Benny, for quite a while now. So I'm glad to have been on the show, and thank you for inviting me. I had a great talk with you.
Cheers. Well, no better way to leave that off. So have a good night, everybody. Take care.
All right.